you think, oh, kids movie. The more you watch it as an adult, I think it's just timeless for anyone.
Today I'm sitting down with Sonita to talk about one of our favorite movies, Toy Story. We'll argue it's one of the most important pieces of cinema ever made. Not just because it was the world's first fully computer animated feature film, but because beneath the talking toys and bright colors is a surprisingly emotional story about jealousy, identity, and the fear of being replaced. So in this episode, we're diving deep into the history of Pixar, Buzz and Woody's contrasting leadership styles, how we rank the first 4 films, and so much more. But for now, sit back, relax, and welcome to my film club. With the 5th movie coming out in a few weeks, and Sonita and I having just finished watching the 4 previous movies, there seemed like no better time to do one of the most important movies of all time, but especially to our generation, Toy Story. So first of all, Sonita, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
5th appearance.
Oh.
Sonita's previous episodes have included Bridesmaids, Freaky Friday, Elf, and most recently, Gone Girl. So I think we've done a bit of a spread here on the genres.
Yeah, very versatile.
Yeah, but this, I mean, those are all amazing movies, but I think objectively this is probably one of the biggest ones that we've done. And we're cracking open your first franchise here.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if this goes well, we're probably going to have to do Toy Story 2, 3, and onwards. So start off by telling us a bit about your history with the movie. When do you remember first seeing it? How many times have you watched it? And like, what's your general affinity for it?
So, love it. I'll start by saying that.
Oh, good. I chose the right person.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact first time I watched it, because I guess we were about 3, 4.
You were 4. I would have been 5 when it came out.
Okay, yeah. I can tell you I've watched it so many times. Could be 50, could be 60. I have no idea. But,
Yeah.
you know, when you're a child,
So you watch it over and over.
it's like, you know, there's maybe 10, 15 videos, your VCRs that you have at that point, and this was one of them. And as a child, as you know, they love repetition, so there's a chance we watched it like every month of my childhood. I have no idea. It was a lot though, and I've always loved it. And the funny thing is, you think, oh, kids movie. The more you watch it as an adult, which I have done, the more you're like, I think it's just timeless for anyone. And yeah, so I'll stop there and say, yeah, there's lots of things I've loved about it. Those things have changed over the years a little bit, but yeah, the movie is just still amazing.
I think the key thing with movies like this, very much kind of taking the baton from Disney movies before, is the fact that they're very appealing to very young children, from, you know, even if it's just like, oh, funny toys, bright colors.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you can watch it at any age and say, oh, there's this very interesting theme here about the human condition, blah, 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 blah. I actually, having studied it like we've done in the last couple of weeks, I almost feel like you'd show it to a kid and you'd almost be like, oh, you're missing so much. Like, you're laughing, you think this is a fun movie, but you're only scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But that's the beautiful thing about movies. So yeah, I don't have a memory of watching it the first time either. So I don't think I would have gone to the movies because we were so young.
Yeah.
And yeah, the main memory I have is actually we had Toy Story 2 on DVD, and I feel like it might have been one of our first DVDs because it came out only a few years after. We must have had this on VHS and similarly watched it a lot. I don't think I watched it as much as you, but I'm probably definitely at 20 or 30 times lifetime views. We've recently watched all 4, which we'll talk about later, actually, about how we feel about that. But that was a super interesting experience to go. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we did 1 again.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, what was your kind of high-level take of doing it in that order?
So in my mind, before we did our rewatch, I thought the first one is easily the best one. But I think that's just because it was the first one, and because I was a child when like a proper child when I first watched it, and it's the one I've definitely watched the most. But then, and I think the story in each of the movies is amazing. But funnily enough, I actually, well, again, we'll get into more details, but I rate, like, yeah, the first 3 I think are really, really amazing for me. And I think I'd forgotten how much I liked the second and third one. But I really liked watching all 4 and then coming back to the first one again as like a kind of comparison.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess it's good to have watched them in order, but they are like kind of good standalone films as well, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you just said, but I did also think that, because obviously Buzz and Woody are the main characters, especially in this one. I think you would argue they're the co-main characters, but you do realize by the 4th one that it really is kind of the Chronicles of Woody, of him going through the different stages of being a toy and stuff. So I think it is interesting to see them as self-contained, but also chapters of a very long complicated history.
Yeah.
Another thing is you and I watched one of the many documentaries about it, and then I watched a couple of others. So there is, for hardcore fans out there, there are a bunch of really good documentaries. Some that are about just Toy Story, some that are about Pixar, and obviously have a big part of it, because honestly the story around how this movie was made is almost as interesting as the movie itself. Almost, not quite, because the movie's amazing. But yeah, it's obviously the computer animation is what steals the headlines, but there's so much more than that. The creative process, the history of the company, the people that were involved, the way the story evolved, and could have, like so many great movies, this movie could have gone so wrong in so many ways.
Yeah.
You know, this is why I love doing this podcast, is you learn all of this stuff about whether it's something that's in the movie or something around the movie, and then you watch it. Like when I was doing my final prep and I was just checking a few scenes, I just started getting emotional, like at really random times. And whereas I don't actually think I've ever cried watching it normally, the first one, whereas I know if we watched it now I would at least 2 or 3 times, because of the fact that I've developed this deeper connection and understanding with the movie. And we hope that you listeners is how you'll feel after listening to the next couple of hours of us talking about Toy Story. So Toy Story came out in November 1995 and was a massive hit. It was the second biggest movie globally that year, behind Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. So people were really in the mood for different things.
Yeah.
So the big thing that I just said is it was the first fully computer animated movie, and it was the culmination of nearly 20 years of the organization that would become Pixar. Pixar, as an entity, started as a part of Lucasfilm in 1974. Basically, George Lucas had a bunch of different divisions within Lucasfilm that did different things, from sound to special effects to visual effects, and so this was specifically the computer animation part. But then when he made Return of the Jedi and finished the initial trilogy, between the fact that he kind of didn't need it as much and apparently was going through a very expensive divorce, he decided to spin off what would become Pixar into its own company. And then at some point Steve Jobs became interested and invested and eventually took over the company altogether. They were filled with visionaries, people like John Lasseter, who is the director of the movie, and their goal was always to make a feature-length animated movie. But this was extremely difficult for no other reason than the fact that the computer processing power was so basic. You know, you always hear those stories about how the first rocket was sent to the moon with something that's the power of a calculator by today. I mean, it's pretty much like that. The computers they were using to render these images are probably 1,000th as powerful as our iPhones.
That's crazy to think about.
So when we were watching documentaries and they were talking about the little steps, they made a lot of short movies, many of which were Oscar nominated and one which even won it. And you can just tell here they were refining the technology and refining their craft, but also waiting for the computer processing power to catch up. The 2 most famous shorts they made were Luxo Jr., which did I watch that one with you or not? That's the two. I think you saw bits of it in the documentary.
I saw bits of it. I didn't watch the full thing.
So I did watch. So Luxo Jr., which is a very short movie about 2 lamps, which are clearly a parent and a child. And it's just very silly, but it is what inspired the Pixar logo. And even down to the sound, the boom, boom, squishing thing is basically what the Luxo Jr. Video was. That was nominated for an Oscar, animated short, and then Tin Toy was the one a few years later that won it. These are quite important because there's some Easter eggs linking to this later. So they didn't make any money off these shorts. It was mostly for prestige and again for refining their art. They made some money off doing TV commercials, which initially I thought that sounds a bit weird, but then they showed a couple of examples, and I guess that was a very 80s, 90s thing of having kind of an overly fancy chewing gum TV commercial or something.
Yeah.
But they were hemorrhaging money, and at many times Steve Jobs kind of considered selling it or pulling the plug. But the goal was always to make the feature-length movie. And then in 1991, they signed up Disney, who basically would be a partner/distributor for what would become Toy Story. Now, Disney was undeniably a huge part of the distribution of making this one of the biggest movies in the world. But their involvement was nearly catastrophic on the creative end, but we'll get into that later. Thankfully, they didn't ruin it. Toy Story is nominated for 3 Oscars, screenplay, song, and score. Didn't win any, but it did receive a Special Achievement Academy Award, which initially I read that and I was like, oh, that sounds like such a participation trophy.
Yeah, what is that?
So it's basically a special one that they give for movies. It's not every single year. And actually, so this is in 1996. That's the last time they gave one to a movie. So it's fairly rare. Some movies that have had it in the past are Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So it's movies that come along and they do something very different on the... It seems like it's mostly for visuals. So something that revolutionizes something technologically. Obviously, it was voiced by an all-star cast that we'll talk about in detail, fronted by Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, who there's so many elements of this movie which it's not. I'm not saying if they had different voices, this movie wouldn't be the same, but if it wasn't them, it would just be so different. Like, they're such a
Yeah.
key piece, and yeah, there's so many there's so many important pieces like that. So the creative force behind it, I mentioned, was John Lasseter, who was the head of Pixar, basically from its inception in 1986 until 2018 when he left. He directed Toy Story as well as A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Cars, and Cars 2, and pretty much executive produced all the Pixar movies until 2018. So yeah, because I read it was in the book that we have here about the history of Pixar by Ed Catmull, who was another key person in Pixar. And basically, John Lasseter was, after the success of the first couple of movies, and as he was the head of the whole organization, he let other people come in to direct and became more of the big picture guy than the individual movie guy. So, do you want to guess the rating on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes?
I mean, they have to be really good. They have to be up there.
So let's start with IMDb.
Let's go for IMDb. I'm going to say like 8.8.
8.3.
Okay, harsh.
But I don't even know if the number one movies are 8.8.
To be fair, I was just thinking, I've never seen a movie that's like 9+ on IMDb, so I was like, I'll go as high as I can.
But yeah, so 8.3, which puts it at number 78 all time. Toy Story 3 is at number 94, and the others are not in it. So this is the highest rated on IMDb Toy Story movie. Rotten Tomatoes?
I would say above 90% for both critics and audience. I'm going to say critics 95 and audience going to go 96.
So 100% from the critics.
Oh, really? Oh, that's fantastic.
I think all of them, definitely I think the first three have, or all three 100%.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not everyone might give this movie a 9 or a 10 out of 10,
Yeah.
but I can't see how anyone would say that this movie is rotten, which, I mean...
Oh, so true. I always forget that's what it
Yeah.
means from the critics. Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
And 92% from the audience. So again, 92% thought it was good. Which, you know what, if anything, that's a bit low. Like, who are these fools?
That is a bit low.
The audience should know better. So here's a Toy Story by the numbers. So as I mentioned, it took 4 years to make, but only 120 people worked on it, which is crazy when you think apparently something like Lion King took 500 to 1,000 people working on it.
Wow.
So they did it, but probably that's why it took them so long. And only 30 animators, which again, you think about how many special effects people work on Marvel movies or stuff like that. And I'm sure Pixar movies now have hundreds of thousands of people. Some of these numbers are random, but I thought they were interesting. They individually created 1.2 million leaves for Andy's neighborhood. So when you see the lines of trees, just think that every single one of those leaves was individually rendered.
Oh my God.
They used 25,000 cartoon panels for the storyboard phase of production because they spent so much time, obviously because it's so hard both to create, animate, and then render every single frame that you never... It's kind of like, it reminded me a bit in Lord of the Rings about how it's so hard to do this and so expensive.
Yeah.
That you're like, we need to plan every last shot ahead of time. So between that and the rewrites and everything, 25,000 storyboards. So Woody... So I'll talk more in the production about how it's actually done technically, which surprisingly, the documentary we watched wasn't very good at explaining it.
No.
But one of the other ones I watched was a lot better. It's because I think ours I had like 4 or 5 notes, and this other one I had about 30 notes. So,
but I think the one that we watched was Pixar broadly, wasn't it? The one you watched was a specific to Toy Story.
But I think when you're explaining Pixar about the animation, I think it's important to actually understand how it was done. But so the simple way it's done is they obviously created these kind of digital marionettes where they could animate them by moving things around. Animation controls, they're called. But Woody had over 700 animation controls in his whole body, including 58 in his mouth alone. So that's 58 things that basically on the computer you'd be like, oh, let's increase that to 50% or bring it down. And it would just move something in his mouth. So every single time Woody is moving, they're changing something on the computer that says, oh, move his arm angle by 50% and do this and do that. And but 700 things throughout his whole body. So the amount of detail and the amount of work it would have taken is crazy.
Yeah.
And there were over 110,000 frames in the movie, because obviously 24 frames per second for about 77 minutes, which required over 800,000 hours of machine time to render, because each one of those frames sometimes took hours to render.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. Alright, so we've mentioned a few things, but we've tried to keep it spoiler free, but now we're going to cross the spoiler line, which means that from now on, everything we say is going to give around the ending. We're going to talk about everything in depth. So if you want to go back and watch Toy Story for the first time, what have you been doing with your life? Or more likely, maybe you haven't seen it in ages and you want to refresh your memory before we get into all the nitty gritty. Now is your time. So you've been warned. This is the spoiler line. Okay, now we're going to do the entertainment section because, Sonita, we know that no matter how fancy it is, special effects, good acting, whatever, the most important thing with a movie is that it's entertaining. So what's the first entertainment box that comes to mind for Toy Story?
It's a good blend. Honestly, it's a blend for me between the pure comedy and emotional, some sort of blend of funny and like heartfelt.
So I think this is where watching the 4 was interesting because... You see, I'd say in the third one, the emotionality might actually come first.
Yeah.
Between both the ending, and I don't mean the furnace, between the ending with Andy giving the kids away and obviously then the furnace. I think the emotion is probably the number one thing. There is some strong emotionality here, but I think it was really like these rewatches, watching them all, and that's when you really get hit in the feels in it. But I do think if you watch this movie casually and when you watch it as a kid, you're not getting emotional. It is just primarily it's funny and it's all sorts of humor. This is, you know, we were saying about how it can appeal to young and old, is the fact that like there's basically like borderline slapstick humor of just like people falling over and it's just because it's animated, it just looks so unique and it's funny. But then there's really deep, like layered things where there's some really good lines, which you only get when, like one of them, which I think I only picked up this week, was at one point is, oh, what's up with him? Laser envy? No kid is going to understand that one. But then it also has real drama, which gives it a very serious foundation and then leads to the more emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And it has some really strong themes. So I've listed identity, purpose, friendship, fear of replacement, which all kind of have overlapping stuff, and we'll talk more about that later. And even a bit of horror. People say that the whole Sid part is a bit horror-y, but I would specifically say that the bit where they scare Sid, that like you could recut that differently with music, kind of from Sid's point of view, and make it into a bit of a horror short film.
It's true. Yeah, I also thought, I don't know, for the themes, definitely friendship, but there's some like abandonment or, you know, something around that is definitely very deep in this.
Both Buzz and Woody, you can also link what they go through a lot with the relationship with work. I think Woody basically attaches too much of identity to his role as leader of the toys at the detriment of his personal life, because the fact is him and Bo are into each other. It's not until the end when he's been demoted that he finally gets with her, which I think is an interesting idea that, okay, now that you no longer have your professional responsibility, you can actually take care of yourself and your personal life. And then similarly, I think the whole Buzz thing of kind of when maybe you come out into the world with stars in your eyes and you think you're going to be, you know, a billionaire or a rock star or you're going to cure cancer or whatever. You think you're a space ranger, and then one day you kind of just get hit in the face and you realize, you know what, maybe I'm just gonna have a normal life.
Yeah.
And initially it can be hard, but then you realize, and then I also think, because clearly Woody and Buzz are kind of supposed to be father figures for Andy, and I think you can definitely see that as like maybe, you know, being a space ranger isn't as important as actually taking care of Andy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can read a lot into it. And at 77 minutes before the credits, it's nice and it's short, and we love that in a movie.
Perfect.
It's funny because obviously you realize that they were like, every minute we add onto this is going to cost us another month of time and millions of dollars. So like, how short can we make this?
You know what though? It doesn't need to be longer. That's the thing. Like
Nothing
we've
feels
talked about
rushed.
this with like when we've watched episodes of Recess and they take 10 minutes, but so much happens in the story during that time. I feel the same about Toy Story. Like it doesn't need to be longer, but at no point do you feel shortchanged or like, you know, everything has like really good pacing, and 77 minutes, you really can't complain.
I think there was even a couple of scenes where I would initially think, I was just being overly, not critical, but I was being overly, I wonder if they could make it even shorter. And every time I would think this scene could have, but then this scene would do something. I was like, no, this is really important, and they need it for the movie. So yeah, they kept it nice and trim, which is good. All right, moving on to the story. Now, a lot happens, but I judge the length and the complexity on the story of how many cards it takes me to do this, and I got it into one, so I'm pretty happy with that. So, do you remember the first scene?
the toys are made. There's like some sort of enactment or something that
Yes.
the toys are doing, but it's not a serious one. Is
Yeah,
it?
so it's Andy playing with the toys.
Yes, that's it. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's why. Because he's using his silly voices.
Yes, yeah. Which is, I think I've forgotten that that's how it started, and I think it's such an important beginning because, especially nowadays, we have a lot of friends with very young children. It's actually really nice to see how much they play, even if they have access to iPads. So that is quite heartening. But I think, even if they played when they were younger, if you showed this to a 15, 16-year-old now who are on their phone all the time and probably haven't played with toys in 10 years or so, it's important for them, even if they used to do it, for them to be reminded that this is the point of toys. It isn't to have them, collected or like ornaments and stuff. It's to take them and to do these silly things, which obviously the grown-ups look so silly. But I personally did exactly pretty much. I mean, I played specifically with Legos and Playmobiles, but I also had a bunch of like figurines and stuff, and I did exactly what Andy did.
Really?
And honestly, I think that's where some of my creativity comes from, is from coming up with these scenarios. I did this with my Playmobiles all the time. I would come up with like, oh, these are the bandits and they're taking over, and oh, the cavalry's coming in and all of that. And it's just such an important formative part of childhood. And I think it's key that the movie starts with that, because everything in the movie revolves about the fact that the toys want to be played with, both because they know it's good for Andy, but you can just tell at their core. Maybe we'll talk later about the rules of the Toy Story universe, because that's something that can be a bit confusing. But I think the most important thing to remember is that their reason to live is to be played with.
Yeah.
I think the best way to consider it is the human instinct. This doesn't apply to everyone, but generally humans have paternal instincts, and it's to reproduce and raise children. I think toys' instinct is to want to be played with, which is why when they're not played with, it's absolutely like heart destroying. And as we saw in the future movies, they'll go to really great lengths to be played with. And so I think starting with that scene is super important. And the other thing, which when you've watched this a million times, you forget it. That whole first scene, the toys are obviously inanimate. Then you get the song, You've Got a Friend in Me, which is very cute. Woody gets left on the bed, and then he comes to life, and you kind of get this reveal of all the toys coming to life. And obviously, we've seen this movie so many times, but the first time you watched it, you must have been like, what the hell is going on? Even if you've seen the trailers or whatever, it must have been such a trip to see the toys come to life.
Yeah. Do you know what's really funny about this is when I was talking, well, we had Sonia here the other day, didn't we? And she said, that when she used to come into our bedroom, I think as a child, because she's a year younger than me, but I never knew this about her. She would like try and open the bedroom door really quickly to catch her toys in the act, and she said that's because it came from this movie. Like no other movie would have made a child think, like she would have been 3 or 4 at the time as well. And no other movie made us think like that. But of course, that's where all of our minds went. And if anything, it's actually really cool for parents as well, because they're always like, no parent wants to be buying their kids toys and then their kids to be like excited about the new toy and forgetting about the old one. So if kids think, oh my god, my toys have actual emotions and they feel this way if I don't play with them, not to emotionally manipulate, but in terms of like wastage and all of that sort of stuff, and like chasing the next like shiny thing or whatever, I think it's actually quite cool that this is put in the minds of children of like, actually I need to make use of what I have, otherwise they're just going to be sat there collecting dust and feeling shitty about themselves. So but
I think every kid, especially our generation, at some point tried to do or at least thought about their toys being alive. One interesting thing is that originally they wanted to start the movie with a Buzz cartoon, because I think the whole point is that Buzz Lightyear, and obviously we see the TV commercial, but he is meant to be based on a cartoon, again, like a lot of toys were. Or at least he was originally. But the reason they didn't was because they thought if you started off with Buzz, no one would ever believe that Woody was ever Andy's favorite toy.
Oh, really?
And I do think the way they've done it is perfect. Of you establish Woody kind of the before, this is how the world is, and then you introduce Buzz, which just kind of messes everything up and shakes the cage. So, but it was interesting that's again, I just find it fascinating to hear the ideas that were had. And then to think that they had a meeting where there's like, no, this is why this is a bad idea. And it turns out they were absolutely right. Yeah.
Also, in terms of like, if you think about the sequence of life and like what came first, not that these things are real, but like cowboys and like, Westerns and stuff is seen as like an old style thing. And then anything to do with like space, rockets, like all of that is very modern and flashy and like lasers and stuff like that. So it makes sense, not to make it into a bigger
absolutely
metaphor, but like it makes more sense that way.
But if you don't understand, if you don't establish the relationship between Woody and Andy both ways, the rest of the movie doesn't really work. So I think they made a great call there. So playtime, which is fun. You also see a bunch of the other toys, but they're not properly introduced until later. So You've Got a Friend in Me montage, about 30, 40 seconds, is very cute. Introduces us to that absolute banger of a song.
Mm-hmm.
So then he goes downstairs. Woody overhears about the party being today. He goes back to the room, comes alive, and says, "The party's today." Which, by the way, you're the boss. How did you let that slip on by, Woody?
Yeah.
And then the toys come alive in that first time, and then they've got there's a couple of minutes before the toy meeting starts. You kind of just get introduced to them all. So you see Ham, you see Rex, you see Slinky, you see Mr. Potato Head, and yeah, they all say one or two things, which just immediately establishes their identities, which we'll go into later. So they have the toy meeting, which especially that's more of a grown-up thing, but just the idea that he's there with his little clipboard and his microphone. He's like, "Guys, we need to have a council on this, and we need to revisit that."
Yeah, he's got a list of agenda items.
Yeah, he is. We'll talk about it in the characters, but one of the other things that as a grown-up I really appreciate is Woody and Buzz's different but very diametrically opposed, but also both good leadership skills. And Woody here is clearly he's the organized one who has agenda meetings and stuff.
Yeah.
So then they have the arrivals of the presents outside, which is, I think that's probably the first properly funny scene of them just being silly and stuff. And that the bit I always think of is how they get intimidated by this big present.
Size
yeah.
of the present.
And then they see that's a little one, and then the person turns and it's super long, and they go, "Ah!"
Yeah.
And that, again, establishes something so important is the anxiety that these toys feel about the fact of being replaced. And again, you understand immediately. Obviously, you don't know that it's going to happen to Woody, but you understand that this is their number one thing they have anxiety about is being replaced. And so they do it in a funny way, but very effective.
Yeah.
Oh, they send and then they send the troops down.
Oh, yeah.
Which we were both saying. We just love the troops. I think visually they're cool, but also the idea that they're just these little guys, but they're like the toughest soldiers there, and they're like, "We will fight for you, sir."
Yeah, that the sounds as well of them moving. It's like so simple, but there's something about the sounds that they make as they clip clop along the floor that I've always, even as a child, I just love. It's like what do you call it? It's like quite a big thing on the internet now, like when people are opening...
Yes, ASMR.
That's it, yeah. I think it's like something to do with that for me.
Yeah.
It's like, I just, yeah, it does things.
So here's a fact I had, and I didn't know the right time to say it, and I think now it is. So obviously when they were animating all these things, that something like, human walking is easy because they know how humans walk. And, Woody moving is pretty obvious. But one of the things they weren't sure about was how to make the soldiers walk, because obviously their feet are stuck into the plastic mold.
Yeah.
So to understand the dynamics, the animators, they taped their feet to snowboards and they just started walking around the office like that to understand how you would actually do it. Because you got to, remember, you got to animate it. You've got to understand how are their knees going to move? How is everything going to move? So there is actually a video of them doing that and obviously falling over a lot. But that's the dedication.
The commitment to the art.
But it is like details like that. That's how they got it right. Because if they just walked off their plastic thing and walked around normally, it wouldn't have the same effect of their whole silly vibes. So yeah, one of my favorite bits actually is because I love the logistics, Sonita, is the soldiers coming out, carrying the thing, lowering it down with a skip rope, carrying it, then the mother stepping on them. This again, it was only upon putting together my notes and stuff that I realized how effectively they line up so many things. So the playing, the anxiety, and here, so she steps on them and you cut away and then it comes back and they think all the soldiers are fine, but there's one who's been hurt and he's like, "Go off without me," and he's like, "No soldier left behind." But then you get a bit emotional. It's like, "Oh, this poor guy," and that's when you go, "Wait, why am I getting emotional about a piece of plastic?" And I think, boom, it's like one of the most important things in the movie is that you are going to feel about these toys the way you would about a pet or a human or anything. Like you're gonna feel for them, and you never see that character again. But it's a first. Oh shit, their life is hard and dangerous. And
what's so interesting as well is like this was the first time where you actually see like the toys are the main characters and the humans are like secondary. So it's like they are obviously the humans are there to kind of like support the storyline or whatever. But like you very quickly, it's not that you forget their toys, but you see each of the personalities, you see them as real, as real, and so it's like it very quickly becomes less silly, I guess, and you get immersed.
Shit gets real.
Yeah, exactly.
When you get stepped on by a big giant monster. So they get into the flower pot with the walkie-talkie and start reporting back, which is just, again, how did they come up with that? It's like, so this is how toys would, and I just love the idea that the toys at one point in the past thought to themselves, God, it's so stressful not knowing what toys are going to come at a party. Obviously, they understood that at parties when you get new toys. It's like, oh, I know. Probably Woody was like, here's what the guys are going to do. They're going to take the baby monitor down and they're going to report to us live, so we're going to know everything. So it's just, I mean, who comes up with this stuff?
Very clever.
So they have the presents. The funny thing there is that Mrs. Potato Head,
Yeah.
and then Rex, he's scared that the dinosaur's going to come. So basically everyone's kind of worried except for Woody. And then they get the lunchbox, they get the sheets, who invited that kid, and all that sort of stuff. And then...
Oh, and they lose the signal on the walkie-talkie.
Yes. So that's it.
The big panic, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's a bit of one of the slapstick things when it falls and they all start fighting over it. I think Rex is just putting the battery in all wrong. And again, Woody comes in and he's actually the one who knows how to put batteries into the thing. So yeah, they miss the signal that the kids are coming up. And I think, obviously, we've already seen them sort of go inanimate. But this is where they're like, oh, we just need to flop down exactly where we are because the kids are coming. Kids come in, make a mess, push Woody over, Buzz there. They leave the room. Buzz Lightyear introduction, which is one of my favorite scenes.
Agreed. That was my first favorite scene I wrote down. Just how much he takes himself so seriously during this.
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of because this scene is one scene where you get him by himself. There is no sign of intelligent life anywhere, which is one of my favorite lines. Then the introduction to Woody, and then very quickly I think I'd forgotten until this rewatch that the jump scene happens right then, because that's something that I feel like in a different movie that was 20 minutes longer, there would have been something else and then the jump. But it's like, no, straight in, you can't fly.
Yeah.
Can fly. And I think as a kid, I found that scene a bit annoying because, like, obviously he's not actually flying. Why is everyone falling for it? But now as a grown-up, I'm like, yeah, no, it's pretty cool how he does it.
He's using everything around him to make it look like he's flying.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's one of my favorite. I don't know if you call it a shot because it's a whole scene, but I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think if you were to pick one shot, I would pick the one where he's actually attached to the plane going around. Because the other thing is, he says specifically, I could do this with my eyes closed, and then keeps his eyes closed the whole time. So that way he technically didn't actually see what happened. But I was saying about, so Woody is the more organized guy. This shows that one of Buzz's skills is that he's an improviser. So he didn't plan any of that. He just did it and it happened and it was super cool. So it's both his personality, but also kind of his vibe, for lack of a better word, is he's just someone who just does things. But yeah, and I think we jump straight into the montage of everything of Strange Things, which, so there's 3 songs, Strange Things, I Will Go Sailing No More, and obviously You Have a Friend in Me. But we were both saying we think Strange Things, purely from a toe tapper point of view, it's good. It just sounds great. But it's also really sad to see. So the posters change, the sheet changes. I think one important thing here, though, is that in this whole part, where you just see a bunch of random stuff happening, Woody becomes a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
Like, he's mean to people and, like, dismissive. Like, I think at one point, Buzz is scratching Slinky Dog, who's Woody's best friend.
Yeah.
And he just pushes Slinky Dog's butt off and he falls off. And conversely, Buzz is actually helping people. He's not just there. He's obviously fixing his ships, but he teaches Rex how to roar. And he's giving them workout lessons and stuff, which I think is a very important part of it, because he's not just there taking care of himself, is that he is taking on the actual responsibility of a leader, which is to take care of your troops.
Yes.
While Woody is being a dick. So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And then Woody ends up in the toy trunk, and that brings up one of my funny mini scenes, is when he comes out without the hat. And then the shark comes out and he goes, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Yeah.
It's completely gratuitous, but it's just so funny.
It's like when you and I make fun of each other in private.
Yeah.
And you just say something ridiculous and it just makes you laugh because you've got a very particular sense of humour.
Yeah.
But they put it in the movie. It's so good.
And then I think shortly after that is when he clicks Buzz's thing and it opens for the first time. And again, that's so funny.
That's actually, I think that's top 3 scenes for me. He's gasping for air, and it's this is it's just.
And Woody is just looking at him, knowing very well that that's going to happen to him.
Yeah, he's the theatrics. I think is I respect it.
Yeah, so that's when he has the "you actually think you're real" conversation, which. Because he says, oh, up until this point, I thought you were joking. But again, he's being really mean.
Yeah, he is.
And this is something I was thinking about this one, is that we obviously know that Buzz Lightyear is a toy. So we should almost be on Woody's side, because it is ridiculous that he's being replaced. But because Woody's mean and Buzz seems good-hearted, you do feel it's just let the guy be a space ranger.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't fully got into this yet, but You did ask me to think about kind of, how my favourite toys have changed
Yes.
over the years. And I will say, it's so obvious watching it as an adult that Woody is being such a villain during this period of time. And yet, at no point when I was a child did I ever think that. I always thought,
Really?
Buzz has come on the scene. He's the new shiny toy. I feel sorry for Woody. And I thought all of this behaviour was justified. I was like, he's
Really?
just acting out. He's going through his process. But I never thought, oh, he's actually being mean to the toys around him, or he's wrong, or like give Buzz a chance, he's probably got a good heart. Like I always went on that journey of like, fuck this new toy. And it's just so funny as an adult, you're I don't know what the difference is. Well, we're grown, we're emotionally mature now, but I can't help but see all these things now and think, wow, what an asshole.
You know what's interesting is I obviously agree with everything you said, but my take was almost the reverse. That I think when I watched it as a kid, I thought Woody was kind of being a little bitch.
Yeah.
And I thought Buzz was the cooler toy. And I was like, yeah, obviously he's replacing you and everything. So I think I did prefer Buzz when I was younger. Whereas now, even though I agree with you that Woody is being mean and stuff, but because we're more mature, I kind of understand more what he's going through, because the fact is most people react badly if they were going through what he was going. So I have a lot of empathy. I don't agree with what he did, but I feel like I have a lot more empathy with him than I did as a kid.
It's like we went on the reverse journeys.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is funny because, like, I would say girls, if you're looking at kids, but like girls have naturally have more of that empathy, like earlier on, I think. I'm not sure 100%, but like it's more of a natural thing. And so I think that was the main emotion coming out for me when I watched it when I was younger. But as I get older, I'm more aware of everything else around it, whereas I was just seeing it very black and white. Like I felt bad that Woody was being pushed aside, and that's all I could see.
Yeah, no, I think it is that you were being more sensitive to him. Or to be honest, it wasn't that I wasn't. Is that to me it was like shiny toy, cool.
Yeah, you were almost like looking at it from like.
Well, I'm was basically Andy.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that if you gave me a new toy, I would absolutely chuck aside my older toy.
Whereas interestingly, I had Barbies and stuff. I mean, I never really cared about the Barbies in the same way that Andy does about his toys. But the one like toy that I've consistently had all my life that I would say I had love for was a rag doll that I never actually used to play with. I used she'd be there in the bed, like sleeping there. And so I think for me, I was always thinking about it from her perspective, because I don't know what it is, but maybe if you're a boy who has more of these toys that you're actively playing with, and then you see this cool toy Buzz in the film, you are thinking like that.
I think that's it, is that, so I had a teddy bear, so similar to yours, that was just kind of an emotional anchor rather than a toy. And I think this is the thing, is that Woody, he plays with Woody a lot in the first two movies, but I think Woody is meant to be more of that sentimental, blanket teddy bear doll thing as his kind of overall position in Andy's life. Got him through tough times and stuff. Whereas Buzz is just a cool toy that came along, and once a few years have gone by, I'm sure he'd moved on from Buzz as well. But Woody would always be his, like, your doll, my teddy bear. But the problem is that there is no toy that's just the teddy bear or the doll in this, because they have to be played with.
Yeah.
So they that is one part of the Toy Story universe they don't quite have, is just the sentimental toy. Yeah, so they're having the mean conversations like, you think you're actually a real toy. And to be fair, I think the other toys are like, leave him alone. And then we have the intro to Sid, which is we're about 25 minutes in, perfect time to introduce the villain. He blows up his Combat Carl, which, fun fact, they wanted it to be a G.I. Joe at first, and then the company that made it were like, you're not going to have you blow up one of our toys. So that's why Combat Carl, which isn't a real toy. Another one, before I forget, you mentioned Barbie. Originally, Bo Peep was supposed to be a Barbie, but Mattel didn't give them the rights to do it. But obviously, because they didn't think the movie was going to be big or successful.
Yeah.
But when they saw how big it was, that's why we got Barbies in the subsequent movies onwards, because they were like, please put Barbie in Toy Story. But yeah, because obviously all of the toys that are in there, so there's Mattel, well, Rex says he's from Mattel, but I don't think he's actually based on a real toy. But there's a lot of Play School toys and all the ones that are based on real toys, little product placement inside. They don't officially need their permission to do it, but I think especially because here they're coming to life, it's probably a little bit legally tricky. You wouldn't want to make a movie like this if the brand said no, which is obviously what Mattel did. They absolutely said, we do not want you to use Barbies. They said, okay, fine, we won't. But all the others were obviously on board. So anyway, Sid blows up Combat Carl. We understand that he's the villain, which we'll talk about. He's a great villain for a movie like this. Then the mum says, let's go to Pizza Planet. You can take one toy. And then Woody's like, oh, one toy. So this is when he basically comes up with his silly plot. So just in case you haven't seen the movie, to remind you, Woody wants to be the one toy to go to Pizza Planet, but he knows that he's going to take Buzz. And he sees a toy that's been pushed. He sees a toy that's fallen behind the chest of drawers, and he figures he's going to push Buzz behind there. Andy will take Woody to Pizza Planet, find Buzz that evening. Everyone's fine.
Yeah.
But the plan goes terribly wrong, and Buzz ends up getting knocked out of the window.
Yeah. That also is a very, not to make it like more of a horror than it needs to be, but it's a very Final Destination type moment of the like the plan that Woody orchestrates and how all the toys come into play, and there's a big bouncing ball coming along, and it's everything that when you see Buzz actually falling out the window, it's like a bit of a horror situation.
Absolutely. So the other toys, I think it's the remote control car that saw what happened, right? They basically snitches on him, and the other toys get very angry, rightfully so.
Yeah.
And I think they're about to throw Woody out the window. The soldiers jump on him because they don't like a traitor.
Yes.
And they're about to chuck him out, but then Andy comes back in. They all flop down. He takes Woody, go to Pizza Planet. Buzz is in the bushes, climbs out, jumps on the car, follows them. Then at the gas station, Buzz jumps into the car. They have a confrontation. Buzz, who so far has been pretty chill, no longer chill. They start fighting. It is actually a really funny scene of these two toys like properly punching each other.
Yeah, that's where Buzz says something about like we don't condone violence on our planet.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm not on the planet anymore, and
Yeah,
then just
that's a good
starts
line.
beating the shit out.
Yeah. So they do that. They fall out of the car. Long story short, the car leaves. They're now stuck at the gas station. And I think it's at that point that Woody says, "I'm a lost toy," which I think I pointed out to you. I was like, that's interesting because now at the end of the fourth one, he's deliberately become a lost toy because he
Yeah.
wants to go travel the world and whatever. So he's come a long way, our little Woody.
He has.
So then they see the Pizza Planet car, the Toyota. So it's a 1978 Toyota Hilux, which is a real model, and it became one of the iconic parts of Pixar in general because it appeared in a bunch of other movies.
Oh.
Like it's in Cars, I think it's in Monsters Inc. And so yeah, it's a bit of an Easter egg of Pixar. So they climb into that. That's actually one of my favorite shots is because Woody goes into the back and Buzz is like, "No, cowboy, the safe bit is to be in the docking bay with a seatbelt." And then one of my favorite shots is when he sits there and he taps his seatbelt, but obviously the seatbelt is like massively oversized.
Yeah.
And then again, this is the slapstick humor is that Woody gets like knocked around the back as they drive there. They arrive at Pizza Planet, which, how cool is Pizza Planet?
Also, they arrive and they use the trash containers of the food to sneak themselves in, which is actually another one of my favorite shots. Is like one of them in the soda cup and the other one is in like a burger box or something. And it's kind of like in Toy Story 2. I think they're under the cones, but it's like they're trying to get as many steps in before they have to drop again.
Yeah. It's smart. It's visually funny. It's great. So they get in there. Woody got thrown out because they thought he deliberately killed Buzz. And he doesn't actually care about getting Buzz back per se at this point, but he realizes that he needs to bring Buzz back so the other toys can see that Buzz is all right.
Yeah.
But Buzz doesn't actually care about that. He wants to go back to space. So when they see the car, he says, "Oh, come with me, there's a rocket ship."
Yes.
That's how he gets him to go. So then they get to the arcade, Pizza Planet, and what Woody actually wants to do is jump into the bottom of the stroller so that they go back home. And he sees Andy and his family. But then Buzz sees the spaceship, which is actually the claw machine, and jumps into that.
Yes, the claw.
The claw. So yeah, we won't talk about them in the characters because they're quite small. But obviously the aliens, to me, they're very like they're supposed to be a cult, right? The cult of the claw.
Yes.
Which is,
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then so they go in there. Then they see Sid, who luckily we've been introduced to before, so we know that he's bad news, playing whack-a-mole, but instead of, I don't know if you remember this, like one of those details because it's one shot, but he's playing whack-a-mole on, I think it's actually a human being. That's, whack-a-mole is normally moles coming up, but instead of it being that, it's a human being laid down with holes in it, and I think it's meant to be little aliens popping out instead of the whack-a-mole. But instead of doing it with the bat, Sid is stood on top of it with his feet jumping on it. So just
what a nasty piece of work.
Just being the worst. So they see him, he comes over, wins the little alien, but then he picks up the alien and sees Buzz Lightyear. And obviously the aliens are probably like $1 toys, whereas the Buzz Lightyear costs $20, $30, however much it was back then. And so he's like, oh, I need to win this.
Yeah.
And he manages legitimately to get him. And then,
Yeah.
but then Woody starts pulling him down, and Sid. This is one bit where you feel for Sid, because we've all been on those claw machines, and when you think you've got it, and it slips right out, so annoying. Fuck the claw.
I will say the most unrealistic thing about this whole movie, and yes, I'm including the toys coming to life here, is the fact that Sid could win any toy from a claw machine, let alone 3. Obviously, that's because like they're all hanging on to each other. But like these machines famously don't work. They are scams.
Yeah.
I've tried them all my life. I've never won anything. And that for me is still the most unrealistic thing about this movie. That's right.
That's going to make a great TikTok video. But yes, I 100% agree. But then, yeah, another detail here is that while, I think right before Buzz goes, Woody finds a way out, because this is the thing I like about Woody is he's very scrappy, he's very street smart, he knows to get in the car, and here he figures out how to get out of the machine through the obviously what they use to refill it, but Buzz gets caught, and so he's like, well, I need to go with Buzz to save him. So Sid puts them in his backpack, takes them home. They're like, we can't. Well, on the one hand, it's convenient because they're going to be next door to where they need to be. But on the other hand, Sid is bad news. We get home to Sid. We're introduced to his house. We're introduced to his sister. We're introduced to his sick ways, where he takes her doll and puts the dinosaur head on her. And then Woody and Buzz see the other Sid toys that are all the mutilated combined things. Mm-hmm. And they're very scared. So they actually, I think they're hiding in the backpack. And this is when Buzz is using his thing and he's like, oh yeah, blink them to death.
Yeah.
But so they don't actually reconcile with them until later. Also, at this point, around the time that Sid gets home is the midpoint of the movie, which is a very good structure because of the fact we've had all the build up, the adventure is set. Now you're in the hands of the villain, and it's basically, well, now we have to, like, things are about to be at their worst.
Yeah.
And now we need to kind of fix everything. Then it cuts back to the other toys doing their rescue thing, which is like another like bit of a funny thing with Rex and Ham. I think are using the flashlight, and then there's Whiskers in the only cat. If this movie has any flaws, you don't actually see a cat on screen, so it needs more cats.
Yeah.
But given how bad the dog looked, they probably figured that the cats would be too hard. But at first I was like, was that an unnecessary scene? But that's actually the beginning of the scene where the mum and Andy get home and they're really sad because they've lost Woody. There's no better time than this to say it's not a nitpick, but one of the things I kept thinking about this movie is these people must think they're going insane all the time because toys disappear, toys appear, they're never where you left them. Like the mother, when she, obviously it's horrible that she steps on the soldiers, but she's like, what are these toys doing here? And the fact that the toys are never where you left them. Even at the end when Buzz and Woody, because he's been looking for them, he's so sad that he's lost his 2 favorite toys or whatever, and then he turns around and they're just sat in the box. He's obviously happy. I'd just go, what the fuck? I'm losing my mind. Mom, you need to put me into an asylum because I've had this box and my 2 favorite toys just appeared. Obviously you're not imagining that they're alive, but yeah, you'd go crazy.
I mean, this must be how you feel every time you find your phone around
Exactly.
the house.
I notoriously lose my phone all the time. So to me, the idea, this is, maybe this is what's happening. Maybe my phone is alive.
Don't pull that one on me.
Listen, I'm just saying it's worth considering. So yes, I feel very much for, because there again, and then the mum being like, oh, do you remember where you last had him? He's like, yeah, I had him in this car, and then he disappeared. And then I think at the end, the mum's like, you see, I told you they would appear somewhere obvious. Like, Mum, stop it. You're being patronizing to poor Andy. So the point is the toys hear that both Woody and Buzz are missing now. And that's when Mr. Potato Head and the more cynical one's like, oh, you see, he's done a runner because he killed Buzz or whatever. So yeah, bad times. Then it's the morning. Sid burns Woody with the magnifying glass, which is always a horrible scene.
And he has to cool his head down in the box of the bowl of Cheerios.
Yes. So fun fact about that one. So initially they wanted him to dunk his head into the water that the dog drinks. But the problem is that water was extremely hard for them to render. Basically impossible. So initially I thought, oh, is there no water in this whole movie? So I went through the whole movie. There is water in 2 other occasions. When it rains later on so that they have to delay the rocket launch. That is clearly water. And then also when they emerge, when they scare Sid, there's a couple of soldiers that emerge from a puddle. But I think I can imagine the idea was that the puddle is probably pretty easy and the rain is quite 2-dimensional, so they were easier. But to actually make him dunk his head into a thing of water that was clearly water would be really hard to do. So instead what they do is he dunks his head into Cheerios, but you never actually see the liquid. So it's meant to be
Oh,
a bowl of
yeah.
Cheerios, obviously with milk in it. But the reason they pick that is because by lifting his head and having the 2 Cheerios, you infer that he's just dunked his head into milk.
That's so smart.
But you
I
never
didn't
actually see the
realise.
milk.
That is interesting.
I was about to say, what's the purpose of that scene? Why do you need to show him with the magnifying glass burning Woody?
So that the match thing can happen at the end.
Yeah, well, so that he remembers when he loses the match, so that he remembers about the fact that you can light something.
Yeah.
I don't know why he knew that it would work through Buzz's helmet, but it does, and we'll take it. But yeah, again, very...
No, I think it's because it happens by accident, because they're at the end, they're like getting really sad, and Buzz hangs his head down, like is sad, and then the sun happens to like refract through his helmet, and it starts like steaming something, I think, and then Woody's like, oh my god.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that part happens by accident.
But but they've introduced the concept of the refracting light, because if they just did that without ever happening before, you'd be like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, they know what they're doing. Putting together the pieces. So then they try to escape, but the dog stops them, which establishes the dog as an important barrier to them. Again, this is a scene where I thought, did they need to have this? But then as a result of that, Buzz wanders into the room that shows the Buzz commercial.
Oh.
And that's I think that's actually the scene that hit me in the feels the most this last rewatch. It's funny because the commercial is also such a throwback to the 90s. Like, oh, action figure with chopping arm and laser beams. Look, he can do this and do that. But I was rewatching it again last night. It's like, it's bad, and I think one of the big things is his face, and this is where you can see the 200 different things in his face, because he's not even angry. He's just crestfallen, and then the worst part, and you know it's coming, is when you see it flying, and then the not an actual flying toy, which you just know is like the dagger to his heart.
Yeah. It's so sad. Actually, that might be the first time that I truly felt sorry for him in watching the first one, given my lack of empathy towards him before that.
So actually, it's one of my favorite shots is at the end of it, because you see the commercial looking all flashy, and you see Buzz in front of it, which in of itself is a cool shot. But then very subtly, his head sort of goes down, and it's like very telling shot. But one more fun part of that scene is that the commercial is for Al's Toy Barn, which is a reference to Toy Story 2, which I'll tell you more about later. But yeah. So then you get the I Will Go Sailing No More, which is the third song, which I think is probably the one that I had paid the least attention to.
Yeah.
But I've got the lyrics for later, and it's pretty deep shit. All 3 songs are actually quite different in how they tackle, because they were all written specifically for the movie, and the way they associate themselves. Like what some of them... Yeah, I'll keep it for later.
Okay.
But so the song starts, I Will Go Say No More, and as the lyrics say, he basically is feeling down with himself, and then thinks, no, I can do this, tries to fly. No one has ever failed so bad, like not even just like...
that shot of where he starts dropping, and the music, I think at that point is like, it's just so, it's like the sad part. Well, I think the whole song is sad, but that part is like
No, there's a bit when he tries that goes a bit upbeat. He's like, no, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then he jumps, but no.
Yes.
I will go
That's
sailing
it. Oh,
no more. And then his arm breaks off, and he's just like, oh. But then Hannah finds him, recruits him to her tea party.
Mm-hmm. And he gets sloshed.
Yeah, he gets sloshed off Darjeeling, which is just again, as a kid, you don't really understand what's happening there. But it's I think you get that it's funny.
Yeah.
But you don't really understand why.
You know what? Like the other thing is the slurring of the words. It's everything. It's like it doesn't. Obviously, that's not what happens when you drink too much tea. But it's just so funny.
Yeah. And then he gets him back into Sid's room. Woody he throws the Christmas lights across. I know there's a lot that doesn't make sense from a physical point of view, but the idea that little Woody can toss that line across, it's got to be 20, 30 feet. And it's like, and then you see the shot, it's like he tosses it and just goes, woo, psh. It's like, okay, we're just going to go past that.
He is a cowboy.
I mean, yeah, but that's skill, not superhuman strength. Do you realize proportionally to us, that would be like one of us throwing a rope 10 times the length of our garden? Think about how small Woody is.
Okay, fine.
Versus...
I could do the length of our garden. No, I realise how silly it is, but yeah, it looks great.
So yeah, so he does that to try and get across, but the other toys are quite wary at him because they still think that he killed Buzz. And then he does the thing with the arm where it's
Yeah.
like, no, look, he's here. And so I don't know if this is on purpose, but he obviously does what technically is ventriloquism. He's like, oh yeah, guys, I'm Buzz and everything. Which is funny because Woody started off as a ventriloquist dummy before he became a toy with a thing in it, which I'll tell you more about in the characters. But yeah, in the original drafts, Woody was going to be as a cowboy ventriloquist dummy.
Oh, interesting. Well, he's not very good at it.
He's not, and then when he pulls the arm out, and they're like, ah! That's a really funny
Horror
bit. Yeah,
again.
yeah, horror. But then after that, the toys in Sid's room fix Buzz and screw him back in. That's when there's like, oh, we thought this. This actually is one of the things I think is this, like serious silliest. Well, not serious, but he says that multiple times Woody says he thinks they're cannibals.
Yes.
They don't eat. Toys don't eat.
No.
So how would toys eat other toys?
Yeah, I don't know. But they do look really spooky.
They do, but say you think they're gonna kill us, but not.
Yeah.
Oh, we thought you were cannibals.
Cannibals are a very specific
Yeah. So
word.
Woody, he was going through a lot, I guess.
I do like I like what they do with this because it truly is a don't judge a book by its cover situation. And honestly, a lot of us would do this in life. Like, you know, you see someone, big burly guy, loads of tattoos, maybe looks like, you know, I don't know what it might be, but we say this sometimes. And then they turn out to be a gentle giant. And it's like, these people, he assumed the worst when they all swarm him. And they're just smothering him with love to pull him back together. And it's like, no, you're not trying to eat him.
But that baby is so creepy.
The baby on the spider leg.
That's
yeah.
the one always. That's to me. Is that the?
I don't know.
What's the worst one to you?
Is it the Barbie legs with the yo-yo for a top part? I'm not like.
So it's not a yo-yo; it's a fishing rod.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah, that one.
And so that one, that's a perfect example of the adult humor. So I was telling you, so that's meant to be a hooker because it's a hook on sexy like Barbie legs. So it's meant to be a hooker joke.
That's so funny. I didn't get that. Well,
Yeah.
Still as an adult,
Yeah.
these jokes are too sophisticated.
I was looking at it last. I was like, are there others that are meant to be puns like that? But that's the one that's very famous.
Okay.
About everyone, there are like memes. Is like, oh, how are they showing this to children? But yeah, so they become friends with them at this point. Then Sid comes in, barges into the room with his dynamite that he's super excited about. This is the one thing where I related a bit to Sid because I mean, even now when we get, usually it's like a new poster or something. When something you've been expecting comes in the mail and you're so excited to use it, and he can't use it because it's raining. I mean, thank God.
And that's the only way you relate to Sid.
Yes, that's the only way I relate to
Thank
Sid. No, I never cut my toys up and mutilated them.
Yeah. Or doesn't he kill bugs and stuff with his magnifying glass? Isn't there? He doesn't. Okay, I was going to say, because that is actually serial killer.
Yes, but this is the thing about Sid. Obviously, Sid is the unequivocal villain of this. But a lot of people have made the argument that he obviously doesn't know that the toys are alive. So it's still weird, but it's definitely what he does isn't as bad as, say, hurting bugs or hurting animals.
Yes,
because he
okay.
is... And you know what? He's creative. He likes putting together different toys.
That's a positive spin on it.
Yeah. But so he has the dynamite. He wants to blow it up then and there, but it's raining, thank God. And so he puts his alarm clock. Also, 8:24. You know, say a lot about Sid, but he's an early riser. Kids, they sleep in 9 or 10, but he wanted to seize the day. He put an alarm clock and he put it for 8:25.
I mean, at that age, though, what would we say they are? Like 6 or 7?
So this is important. So Andy is 6, but Sid is older. He's 10 or 11.
Oh, okay, then yeah, you're probably right.
Because, I mean, he's going to Pizza Planet by himself on a skateboard.
Oh, so true. He can't be 6.
Another thing is, I feel like there's a time when I saw or read things, because there's so much content in the ether about them that you might not have watched this movie for years, but you'll see a YouTube video or a meme or a TikTok about it. And so you see sometimes stuff, but if you haven't just seen the movie or you see it afterwards, you can't actually fact check it.
Yeah.
And one is about the fact that, actually Sid obviously was growing up in a bad family and blah, 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 and that he was, the victim of abuse or whatever. But then then next time I rewatched it, like his sister seems completely normal.
Yeah.
The rest of the house, it's not the height of luxury. It's not as nice as Andy's, but it seems like a perfectly normal home.
Yeah.
The only thing that's creepy and crazy is his room.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think he's just a fucked up kid. That's my conclusion of that. Mm-hmm. So during the night, there's another important scene of Andy being really sad and asking where it is, and the mom saying, "Don't worry, you'll find them. I found your hat." And then Bo Peep sees it and says, "Oh, Woody, I wish you could see how much Andy misses you." And I think it's important because it does show that Andy at that point misses Buzz and Woody equally.
Yeah.
Because you could think Because, I mean, you know very little about what's actually going on in Andy's head other than scenes like that. And you could think, well, he doesn't care. He only cares about Buzz because he has a brand new toy. So, again, going back to the whole teddy bear effect of Woody, and with the hat, it's important to show that he misses them both. And as Bo Peep says, it would be nice for him to know how much Andy misses him.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he's heading to the dumps. Then during the night, so they're both in the cages. No, Buzz is strapped to the rocket. Woody is in the box, which God knows why he decided to put a toy in a box, but he did. I guess because he's a psycho.
Yeah.
But then they have their heart-to-heart, which is... Again, I don't think... It's definitely not on the same level as some of the Toy Story 3 stuff, but especially when you're doing what we're doing, you've rewatched them, and it is quite moving, because it's both of them basically coming out with their insecurities.
Yeah.
Woody about the fact... I think it's where he says, one of my favorite lines is like, you're a cool toy. You're too cool. Like, it's so intimidating. And that, talking about your insecurities and replacement and all of that. But then Buzz... And then I think that's when he also explains to Buzz about there's more to life than being a space ranger. There's a boy out there who needs us. And obviously this is what... Buzz is really good at inspiring people in like a visceral way. But Woody is obviously very good at actually rationalizing with someone and explaining, like, there's so much more to life than what you thought there was.
Yeah.
And he convinces Buzz... just in the nick of time. And then another very funny slapstick scene is when he pushes it. Woody comes out. Buzz doesn't see that he's come out. And then he pushes the door box and he goes, oh no!
Yeah, he's like, Buzz, I'm out. Yeah. I'm free. And then he's still pushing it and then he sees it coming. Yeah.
Oh.
Again, that should probably have had more of an impact, like, physically. But no, he just bounces right back.
And then I think it's from pushing it, Sid wakes up. He takes Buzz out of the room and takes him downstairs. So at this point, Woody's like, well, I need to save Buzz. Recruits the other toys, tells them, we're going to have to break a few rules. This, again, Woody, just a really good organizer of men, leader of toys. And then they do their plan, which, because we've established that the dog is a problem, they need to get rid of the dog. They do their really good plan. Just love the plan coming together of the duck going and then being picked up from the troops and being saved and everything.
Swinging towards, they're like trying to get more momentum, so I think that the toy can like press the doorbell as well.
Yeah, so they press the doorbell so that it opens so the dog can come out, but also the toys that are pressing the doorbell save the toy. I think it's a little car or something that the dog has chased, and because obviously that toy needs to be saved.
That's
so
it.
No toy left behind.
Yes.
One thing I will say is, we don't own dogs, we're big cat people, but I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to leave your dog outside the front, like just locked out. But for the sake of the movie, we'll allow it. Then we get the Sid scene. So it is funny because Buzz at this point doesn't know the plan. Woody comes, Buzz is like, save yourself. He's like, no, don't worry, I have a plan. Flops down, and Buzz is like, what are you doing? Sid comes, freaks him out, very, very effective way. And then do you remember the last thing he says to him? So he does the whole
play nice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is play, because up until that point, Woody doesn't actually move. Yes. He waits all the other toys that come and creep him out, and he's using his inside voice to talk to him.
Doesn't his head spin all the way around?
So at the end. So I think he's on the barbecue and he's used like he says, "Oh, there's a snake in my boot," and everything, and then Sid's confused and he still uses his inside voice to say, "No, Sid Phillips, this is you," and he's like, "What's going on?" And then his head turns all the way around and he says, "And don't forget to play nice."
Yeah.
Like, ah!
Yeah.
I also love the little follow up when he runs into Hannah and she's like, "Oh," and she's like, "Oh, are you scared? Are you scared?"
Yeah. Yeah, I love that bit.
So Sid is in the third one as the garbage man. You remember that?
No.
So the garbage man right at the end, I think he's doing the garbage truck they used to get home, has the same skull t-shirt that Sid does.
Oh,
so
my
that's
God.
Sid.
Wow.
So, you know what? Garbage man's a perfectly respectable job. Someone needs to do it. But the two theories on what happened to Sid after that, because apart from seeing him as a garbage man, you never know, is the trauma set him straight and he became a respectable person who treated his toys better. But you know what? If you find out that the toys are alive, you're like, okay, I'm going to be careful. Or is it he became a massive pothead and to deal with the trauma of what happened to him? Those are the two theories.
It's funny, he goes from doing something like outwardly destructive and like messy in a sense, and then he ends up cleaning up everyone's trash. It's like, wow. So
then they escape. Perfect example of street smarts is Buzz trying to get under the fence and he can't because the rocket is too big, and then Woody's the one that bends him over and gets him through because he's a smart toy. The dog chases after them. So I think they're running I think they do. Yeah, they catch onto the truck. There's like a tail trailing it.
Yeah.
And I think they're both on it. But then the dog comes and bites Buzz, and Buzz comes off. Then Woody opens up the truck, gets the remote control car, tosses it out. All of the other toys thinks he's crazy, and he's trying to kill the remote control car. So as he's driving the remote control car to go get Buzz, who is now hiding under a car, the other toys basically toss him around so the remote control car goes crazy and then chuck him out. How do they get rid of the dog? Oh, yeah, no. Buzz gets onto the car and he does manage to get him away from the dog. So the two of them are on the car. The car goes at full speed. That's when I think the other toys, Rocky Gibraltar, lowers the back of the truck.
Yeah.
They use Slinky to get them, but he can't quite hold it. But that's when the car starts losing power. It's very intense. It's a very intense car chase. But yeah, and then he can't hold on, so they let go. He falls back, and that's when they think they're dead. The poor car. It tried so hard. It gave everything. Literally, no more battery. But then here's a question: why do you think? Because he had the match, so it's Chekhov's match.
Yeah.
Obvious thing, use the match to the rocket. Movie ends the same. Why do you think they decided to make the match go out just to add that extra level of anxiety?
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know. It seems strange, but
it's great drama.
It is great drama, and I feel like every part of it still makes sense. It just adds more. Yeah, it just adds more anxiety, I guess.
They say in basic script writing structures that like the end of a movie usually is things getting worse and then getting better, but then getting even worse. And I think it's called The Darkness of the Night is meant to be the low point of the movie. And I think you could argue it's when they're in Sid's room and they think they're going to die. But I guess here's the idea that they got so close to getting back to fulfilling the mission, and then they failed so miserably. And now they're lost toys. They're in the middle of nowhere. They've messed the car up as well. And then also it does give us the very funny no, which I think I told you that apparently Tom Hanks claimed that he spent an entire day saying it's probably exaggerating, it's probably a couple of hours, but they made him record saying no in every possible way. And when you know that and you hear that bit, you can see how he would have recorded 100 and they just took 4 perfect ones because they're all very different.
Yeah.
It's almost like no in anger, no in realization, and then no in despair. Like, no.
Yeah, and then it's like almost turns into a little bit of a sob.
No.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can't actually remember exactly how Buzz reacts at that point.
I think at that point I think he's quiet, but he's just that's when he's like hanging his head over. And he's like...
kind of resignation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then he hangs his head over. It starts... Yeah, I think maybe the asphalt starts bubbling or something.
Yeah.
But that's when Woody has his idea, uses it, lights the rocket. They shoot the rocket, which is a great shot of as they're flying and Woody's mouth going...
Yeah.
And then the funny bit where it's like, Buzz, rockets explode!
Oh, yeah.
But then that's where... But this, I think you could construe it here of Buzz learning from Woody's like street smarts about using his wings to eject, to cut off the rocket, which is just a stroke of genius. Mm-hmm. And then, again, I'd argue that the Buzz thing is more emotional, but I think the emotional pinnacle of the movie has got to be... I'm actually going to get emotional saying it, is when he says... So I think it's this shot, which is actually on a lot of posters, where Buzz is flying, Woody is covering his eyes, and he opens his eyes and he goes, Buzz, we're flying. And he says, this isn't flying, it's falling with style. And then Woody says, to infinity and beyond.
Yeah. So good.
And that's the high point. And then it goes back. Well, comes back down to reality, I guess, because we're up riding high. And then he says, "Buzz, we've missed the truck." He says, "We're not going to the truck." And then it's so cool where they go woo, whoop,
yeah,
and they just pop in, perfect landing. And then Andy finds them and is so happy.
Yeah.
And then quick cut to they've moved in. It's Christmas. Woody gets with Bo. Good for him. Buzz is established as the boss. He's sat on the bed. He's doing the radio. Couple of jokes about people and stuff. Christmas party. Mrs. Potato Head.
Yeah.
And then I think the ending is just so smart with, don't worry, Buzz, nothing could be worse than you. And then it's like, we have a dog.
Yeah.
And I just remember even as a kid thinking that is such a smart ending, because that will be a whole other escalation. And the dog is the ultimate toy.
Yes.
When a kid is that age and stuff. And And boom, done.
It's just beautiful.
It really is. I think it's one of those movies that I always watched it a lot growing up. I always appreciated it, but I never thought of it as one of my favorite movies until you start making lists, or you think about where does it rank. And then again, you study it like we've done. You go into the detail and you just appreciate it we appreciate it plenty, but you appreciate it so much more.
Yeah. The power of teamwork as well. Like,
yes.
It shows you how much can fall apart and go wrong when when the two of them are working against each other. And then all of that whole last scene of them working together and overcoming, like,
both
what seems impossible is just... Yeah.
That's so true about Theme, because I didn't have that, because it's them together, but it's them with the other toys at Sid's. It's them with the toys, like, whether it's the soldiers or with them trying to save them and stuff.
Yeah.
Poor Slinky. I feel like every time there's trouble, the first thing is like, okay, just throw Slinky down. He's gonna.
Yeah.
Like, his things must be really overextended.
And you just think, like, even in, not to make it too much about like real life and workplaces and stuff like that, but what can happen when you abandon your sense of this huge ego both of them have? Like, that can be their downfall. As soon as they put that aside and actually start working together, it's like just amazing.
And the like meta thing of that is the fact that it was making Toy Story was such an effort of teamwork, and they said that John Lasseter was the Woody or the Buzz, but he needed everyone else. He needed these creative people. Like, everyone had input. And again, they spent 4 years working. This isn't like a 12-month project that you just do. Like, they restructured it, they redid it, we'll talk about. And teamwork is a huge part of it. I think this is the right time to talk about some of the Easter eggs. So you very astutely pointed out during the meeting with Woody before the first thing, there's a bunch of books behind him. So I did a screenshot. So the one you noticed was, I think it was called Tin Toy, and it had Lasseter as the author.
Yes. Yeah.
So Tin Toy was the short that won the Oscar. And originally, the original story was meant to have the Tin Toy in it, but they very quickly substituted it for Buzz. I'll tell you more about that in the script. Another one of the books is called Knick Knack, and that was also one of their shorts, which they did before. Here's another really interesting one. One of the other books there is The Brothers Grimm, which obviously is fairy tales. And in kind of my wrap up, I've got I feel like Pixar are modern day digital fairy tales. So I think it's very interesting that they almost reference that themselves by putting the Brothers Grimm in that series of books.
Yeah.
Because those are the main ones that have references, but a couple of other, like there's one that's about like a white pasty cowboy or something, which is obviously something to do with Buzz and stuff. So there's a lot of, because when you're doing something, you're animating it, you decide everything. You can decide what color, everything is. What if we're going to put books, do we make them blank? Do we put it? So there's obviously a lot of attention to detail. This is an Easter egg. Apparently it's one of the most famous ones in Toy Story that I did not know about at all. It's called the A113 Easter egg. Does this ring any bells to you?
No.
So A113 is a number letter combination which apparently appears throughout Pixar. It's the license plate for Andy's mum's car.
Okay.
But it appears in other Pixar movies. For example, in Cars it appears, and basically whenever there's like an opportunity to have a number like that, it would make sense, they put A113. The reason is because classroom A113 at the California Institute of the Arts, Caltech, was the room where many famous animators studied graphic design and character animation.
Oh.
So it's a reference to that, like a little in-joke within the industry.
Oh, that's quite cute.
One that obviously you'll know is the ball, the Toy Story ball,
Yes.
which was in the Luxo Junior, because he jumps up on that ball and deflates it in the same way he does the eye in the logo.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. So that's obviously, people refer to it as the Toy Story ball.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely in Up. Anytime there's an opportunity in other Pixar movies, they try and show the ball. Then I mentioned the Al's Toy Barn thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a reference to Toy Story 2, because obviously the big plot is Al. But this started a really interesting tradition, which I think still stands today, where in every Pixar movie, they reference the next Pixar movie. So Toy Story 1 references Toy Story 2. In Toy Story 2, there's one of the ants from A Bug's Life appears as a toy in Al's Toy Barn. And apparently they've kept that going throughout, because by the time, especially once they started streamlining them, they know what the next movie is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's quite easy for them to just put something in it. So yeah, I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but yeah, they always do that.
But Toy Story 2 was like, Was that not the one that they ended up rewriting?
Yes. Now,
But they still had, you mean they still had a view that Al's Toy Barn was going to be like...
so great question. I think it's possible that they hadn't planned it yet, but they put Al's Toy Barn as just a random thing in the ad. And then when they came up with the plot for the second, they decided to use Al's Toy Barn because it made sense because they already established it. And then someone said, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we kept this going? We're working on... So they'll say, oh, we're about... Technically, we could argue that we referenced the second one in the first one. A Bug's Life is going to come out after Toy Story 2. Let's put a reference to Bug's Life in Toy Story 2. And then it became a tradition. That's my guess of how it happened. I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah.
But because especially given how Toy Story came, I do really doubt that they were already planning the second one when they were making it. Then the Pizza Planet truck is also quite famous in Pixar. As I said, it appears in Cars. It appears in others. And then the Dinoco gas station, the gas station where Buzz and that is from Cars as well.
Is it? See, I never watched Cars. I probably would have, I mean, otherwise I probably would be recognizing these things. But yeah, I remember it from Toy Story. I think it's one of the iconic things that when I was, even as a child, I remember like this, you know, the sign is like spinning around and stuff. Yeah. Because
there is an argument, I'm not saying I subscribe to this, but there is an argument that all Pixar movies happen in the same universe. So I think the theory, if you put together some of them, so obviously the Monsters Inc. one, actually that would be, you think the toys would know about the Monsters Inc. people because of the cupboard, but the main thing that people string together is all the ones that happen in normal times, like Toy Story, is the normal world. Then the world gets destroyed, which is then when WALL-E happens. And that basically, post-WALL-E, that's when the Cars have taken over, and that's the Cars movie, and kind of a post-apocalyptic future where the cars rule the world. I mean, I don't think it's true. I think it's a bit silly, but it's a fun thought process. But that would be why there's all these things in common. One of the ones later on that became, I can't even remember it, but the name of the big corporation in WALL-E has appeared in other Pixar movies, whatever the name of it is. It's basically an Amazon type company that does everything. And then, so those are Easter eggs. Here are references to other movies. So there's the Raiders of the Lost Ark ball rolling on Buzz.
Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting because the company started under Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm is obviously famous for Star Wars, but also worked on Indiana Jones. So you could argue that there's actually a link between Toy Story and Indiana Jones. So it's maybe a callback to that. Then there's a Hakuna Matata that plays on the radio, which is a Disney reference to Disney, which is obviously a partner on the movie. And then have you heard about the reference to The Shining in Toy Story?
No.
So the carpet, it's not in his room, it's the carpet in Sid's house. It's the same carpet as the hotel in The Shining. And it's very distinct. It's
horror.
Yeah, it is. And they say that's the movie saying this is the horror part of the movie.
Right.
But yeah, so, and I searched really hard whether there was anyone who worked on both projects, if there was any link. There wasn't. This was just an homage to The Shining as an epic horror movie.
Right. The funny thing that you said about Hakuna Matata playing in the car, like the whole thing is that it means no worries, and I really like the contrast between the song meaning no worries and then all of the worries happening between Buzz and Woody at that time.
Because it's happening during the chase at the end.
Yeah,
okay,
like
yeah,
there are so many worries. Yeah, it's just nothing but worries.
I hadn't clicked that.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the rules of Toy Story, because this is something that if you want to get a bit nerdy about it, you got to wonder. So the main thing is about you'd assume they're not allowed. Well, they're obviously not allowed to be moving in front of humans.
Yeah.
So how come they were able to do it to Sid?
Well, because they're trying to freak him out. No?
Right, but so it means that it is possible for them to do it.
Yes.
So it's
but I think the rule is that they don't want to move in front of humans when they don't want to ruin a good thing. But if they're using it as a way to intimidate and escape, like, because the whole thing is if they did that in front of Andy, he'd be freaked out.
Yes.
He'd chuck them out.
Yeah.
They obviously don't want to mess up a good thing. But with Sid, it's like I mean, it's a part of desperation. It's a means to get back to Andy. But yeah, I don't think it's like a hard rule of like they can't.
I think it's a pretty hard rule, but it can be broken in extreme scenarios. The thing I read about it that explained it best is that it's an instinctive thing, which also explains why Buzz does it even though he doesn't know that he's a toy. But that basically, like any instinct, it's possible to override it if you try, really hard.
Yeah. I guess it's also like...
Kind of like, here's the closest thing I can... like they say that if there's certain bears that if you're being chased by them, you need to play dead, or you need to go like "Rah!" at them. I think it's probably like that. It's completely counterintuitive to do it, but it's possible to do it if you try really hard.
Yeah, and also they probably realised by this point that Sid, because he's so bad, like the only way to get out of the situation is to intimidate him even more because he's a bully.
Yeah.
So it's like that's like
so
you said, like the
bear,
bear analogy exactly. Like they see that that's the way that is probably going to work for him.
So the going beyond the Sid thing. So the idea is that toys. So as we said earlier, toys' purpose is to be played with. So that's what they're literally put on this earth to do, and instinctively they know to flop down. The other thing, very important detail, is about when do they come to life. And people think, because of the Buzz situation, that they come to life when they're taken out of the box for the first time.
Yeah.
That would make sense, right?
That would make sense.
But here's not a problem, but here's an interesting thing about that. Toy Story 2, Prospector.
Yeah.
He's in the box the whole time, but he's alive.
Was he not put back in the box?
No,
so he's come out before.
He's come out before. This is the thing. He pretends like he's brand new.
Yeah.
But this isn't a mistake. It's just that it's a little thing if you think about, is that the other toys should have known that he was a phony, because he had obviously been out. Because the whole thing about him coming out of the box at the end, he's obviously taken himself out of the box before.
Yeah.
So it's unclear when he was first taken out of the box, but he's obviously been taken out of the box at least once.
Yeah.
To come to life and then put back into the box. And as a result, he can go in and out of the box.
Yeah.
But yeah, you come to life when you're taken out. I think because the second Buzz in Toy Story 2 only comes to life when someone opens him up or something. The other question is whether all toys start off thinking that they're not toys, or whether it's just Buzz. I think the easy one there is that all toys probably start off a bit confused.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some pre-programming in them, but usually they're going to wake up in a room, and then the others will, almost like a Matrix thing. There's like, listen, Rex, you're not a real dinosaur. You're really small. You're made of plastic. But because of Buzz is a bit hard-headed, it was really hard, and he's just so arrogant, it was a bit harder for it to get through his head.
It is that, because don't they have the whole thing about how to reset Buzz in Toy Story 2?
Yeah, that's a bit, that yes.
And, or,
so
like,
your factory setting would be when you think that you're.
Or then I think they do it wrong and he ends up Spanish or something. Or like...
No, those are different. I think in Toy Story 2 he gets reset to factory settings, and then Toy Story 3 or 4 is when he gets set into Spanish, isn't it?
Is it? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Them all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember thinking then, if they're resetting him, he's going to go back to this, facade of thinking that he's like, got to do all this stuff, but he doesn't like lose his memory or whatever in the end.
No, it's quite convenient, because normally a factory reset you would lose the memory, but it basically, I think they turn him on to demo mode or something.
That's it. Yeah.
And then they turn him back. He gets his memory back.
That's it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not in the second one that he speaks Spanish, because at that point Jessie has a thing for him, and because at the end she's like, Buzz can dance flamenco.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, because they dance together. Moving on to the characters. So I usually like to go from smallish / least likable to best, most important. So I think we've talked about him enough, but Sid, great villain, scary, hateable, but also, I initially wrote we all knew someone like that. Maybe not quite, but we all get the archetype of who he is. Like, shitty kid, does horrible thing, mean to people, bully.
Yeah.
And as a result, everyone like, fuck this guy. We have no problem him getting scared or whatever. So I did like the exercise of doing like, as a kid, my ranking, and then as an adult. Who was, out of the toys, who would you say was your least favorite? Or is your least favorite?
Do you know what? Probably Bo Peep.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me more.
I just feel like she is... I mean, she has moments where she shows that, like, she cares and stuff, but I just think a lot of the time she acts like a bit of a floozy.
A floozy?
Yeah, a bit of a floozy, a bit shallow.
I thought she was a bit of a wet blanket.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't bring a lot. Very kind of a one-dimensional female character.
Like damsel in distress, that kind of thing. Like
yeah, but she's not really a damsel. Like, nothing actually bad happens to her. But it is funny in the fourth one. They obviously were like, we're going to completely reinvent this character and make him this super like feminist icon badass. Exactly. But I almost went too far. It's like, well, this is obviously not the same character.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't really think of the worst. Like, she's just a bit annoying. What would you say?
There's 7 toys, the main toys, who in no particular order are Slinky, Woody, Ham, Bo, Mr. Potato Head, Rex, Buzz. So basically I've ranked them all 1 to 7, kid and adult. I had Bo 5th, so 3rd from the bottom.
Yeah.
She's actually the only one who stayed the same. So not my least favorite, not far from my favorite, but yeah, I've got her as just a bit bland.
Yeah.
As a kid, my least favorite was Rex because I found him again as a
Really?
boy. I just found him annoying
Yeah.
and wimpy and stuff. But I've moved him up to fourth as an adult because I think he's quite endearing and silly and funny and vulnerable.
He's actually my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wasn't always, but he's my favorite. I just love.
When you were a kid, what was he?
When I was a kid, honestly, probably somewhere in the middle. I'll probably put it. Woody was my favorite, just because I really felt like he was the main toy, and I felt bad for him when like things changed. Buzz, I put somewhere like lower down. I didn't do the exact number rankings, but I just know that Woody was at the top, and I'll say like Rex and Mr. Potato Head were probably next in the list for me.
The favorites.
Yeah.
So I had Mr. Potato Head after Rex as my least favorite. And I actually have him as my least favorite now as an adult.
Really?
Mr. Potato Head is I think he's definitely the closest thing to a villain as the toy. Among the toys, he's the villain.
Mm.
He is the ringleader against Woody.
Yes.
He always thinks the worst. He's a dickhead. Let's just put it that like he's always mean-spirited. He's always grumpy. Now they say one of the reasons that he's grumpy because he keeps losing his facial features. Sure, I'm sure that would be a very frustrating life, but it doesn't change the fact that he's externalizing it on everyone around him.
Yeah.
Like, the guy needs to get laid. Thank God they got him a Mrs. Potato Head.
That is when I like him, to be fair. I don't like him when it's just him.
Yeah,
it's more like I like them, Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah,
together.
okay, but yeah, I'm talking very much like
From
this
Toy
one.
Story 1, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but the big thing is that he's the ringleader against Woody, and very importantly, he doesn't show any remorse. Whereas in the moving truck, when they realize that Buzz is still there and that Woody was telling the truth, Slinky Dog says, "What have we done?"
Yeah.
And Rex goes, "I feel guilt." So they obviously feel bad about what's happened.
Yes.
But I actually went through the whole scene. Mr. Potato Head doesn't say or do. He does help them with Slinky Dog.
Yeah.
So he's not being a complete dick. But at no point does he say anything or apologize. And I rewatched the whole ending. He doesn't say anything. So
Well, that's quite telling.
And he's a very archetype. He's a Judas character. He's a traitor. So yeah, and then so the conspiracy theory that I told you about, which there's a couple of things there's definitely quotes and things that he says and does that can definitely buttress this theory. Is that he used to be Andy's favorite toy, and then he got replaced by Woody in the same way that Woody has got replaced by Buzz. Yeah. So I mean, which makes me a little bit more sympathetic for him, but yeah, still fuck Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah, okay.
Then Ham kind of falls somewhere in the middle. I think he's the second ringleader. Like he seconds Mr. Potato Head, but I don't think he's as bad, and I find him quite funny.
It's funny because that shows obviously you've gone through it properly, which is why you have more of an attention to detail on this one. But in my mind, Ham was the main ringleader.
Yes.
As you were just saying it there, I remember now. I can hear the voice of Mr. Potato Head like say, and also like immediately jumping to that conclusion,
Yeah.
like not what's the word? Not thinking that he has any positive intent or whatever. But yeah, you're right. It is both of them.
Yeah. Because I had Ham as fourth as a kid, so I did quite like him because he's funny and he's like cool is the wrong word, but yeah, he's more fun.
Yeah.
But I have him as my second least favorite now. So that's now from the bottom is Mr. Potato Head, Ham, Bo, then Rex, who I've moved up from last to fourth. Then I had Buzz as my favorite as a kid. We'll finish the ranking, then we can delve deeper. I had Buzz as my favorite as a kid, but I've moved Buzz down to third. Then I had Woody as my third favorite as a kid because I said I didn't really like him, but I've moved him up to second because I've moved him above Buzz because I do think that he has a more interesting character arc.
Yeah.
And even though I disagree with what he did, I empathize for him. But my favorite character is Slinky Dog. He's it's simple, but he's I think intrinsically he is the best character there as like being a good person. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's super loyal to Woody. He stands up for him when others won't. He does eventually give up on him, but he's also kind of he's
that scene
when he closes the blind. Because he's still going with the herd mentality, unfortunately. Because that is actually another one of the themes is about mob mentality more than herd mentality. Because he still needs to live in that community, so he can't. And there's nothing more he can do. But yeah, he's just very funny, and he's very cute too.
He is very cute.
Also, I love the voice they gave him.
I can't think of it.
It's just a bit of a gargly
yeah.
voice. So, sad story on this. Have you ever thought the Slinky Dog sounds like he smokes 2 packs a day? He's got out the bit of it.
yeah.
So the reason is because the guy who voiced him was an avid smoker and died at 50 of lung cancer.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
So that was quite a while ago. So definitely the new one, but even the fourth one might be a different voice actor. But the guy talks about how he's a very good voice actor who doesn't sound anything like him when he speaks normally in interviews, but that he imagined he had a dog that he loved, and he gave the voice of what he thought his dog would sound like.
Oh, that's so cute. Imagine if we did that with our cats.
Oh, God, it'd be so lame.
Yeah.
So let's focus on Woody and Buzz. So Woody, I've said a lot of this already, but he's a great organizer, planner, pragmatic leader, but quite neurotic, and I think he puts too much of his identity and value into being Andy's favorite toy, which is why when he loses that, it kind of shatters his entire existence. And initially that's fine, but then it turns into his insecurity, let's call it, turns into a real problem when Buzz comes along. And the way he reacts to that is not good. As I said, he's mean to people, he's grumpy, and he does a bad thing, but there's just something relatable about him being a flawed character. It's like, well, what would we do? Probably something similar. And yes, what are your thoughts on Woody?
Yeah, I think he needs to go through his process.
Yes.
And I think initially he is thinking purely from a selfish standpoint of like, how is this making me feel? Why am I not the number one toy? I need to be played with, rah, rah, rah. And what I really like is seeing him go on that journey. First of, I need to get Buzz back so that this group of toys will accept me. And then kind of the tipping point of actually realizing, that Buzz is not evil and that actually if they work together. I think it's the fact that he then realizes that Andy needs Buzz. Andy needs both of them, and he's then putting himself in the shoes of someone else. Yeah. And you see that. I think you said he has one of the more interesting kind of character arcs, but it really needs to happen for the movie to happen. But so I think as an adult, I'm like, oh God, this guy is so whiny for so much of it. But then I realize we're
all quite whiny.
We are, and he's allowed to have emotions, and it's most important what he does. The journey he goes on and what he does with it in the end. So yeah, absolutely. I like him.
But I mentioned that he started off as a ventriloquist dummy and evolved into a Western toy. But in the original version, he was a lot meaner, which is kind of crazy because he's already quite mean in this. But yeah, I'll talk about it more in the story, but basically when they had to redo the whole thing after about 2 years of working on it, the biggest thing was the fact that he was like a proper dick. And it is true that if he was any meaner than he is in this, it wouldn't really work because there's a whole thing that someone can't go too far you still need to be able to bring them back. And I do think if he had deliberately wanted to kill Buzz or something, and even if he had brought Buzz back because he wanted the other toys to know that it was an accident, which you just hit upon really well, if that's all he was wanting to do, then you'd be like, well, this is a bit of an unsatisfying ending. But I think it's when they have the heart-to-heart in Sid's room, he says some things along the point of, you're more important, you need to get back there. I think it's kind of in trying to convince Buzz that he's important, he kind of convinces himself that it's important for Andy to have Buzz. I think, and I do, at no point would he sacrifice, at any point, I'm just thinking out loud here, is there any point where he basically implies that he would sacrifice himself to get Buzz back?
Not that, I guess because it's part of the plan, him leaving himself on the barbecue or whatever it is, for the rest of it to happen, but not really, because
he's still trying to get back. But I do think I think push comes to shove, he would have, it's kind of like the whole Forky thing in the fourth one is that he's there, he is very much thinking about his kid, probably a little bit too much there, but so he understands the importance. Tom Hanks apparently was always the top choice, and he's just, I can't even explain why. Oh, actually, no, I can, because we're going to do a recasting of the voices, and I was thinking about Tom Hanks, but it is just a range of emotion that he needs to be able to do. He needs to be the funny, charismatic cowboy, but then he needs to be basically the whiny bitch as well, and he needs to be inspiring, and he needs to be emotional, and obviously Tom Hanks is just one of the goats, so he was the perfect choice.
He's so good.
And he's got that fragility, he's good at being whiny, but he's not too whiny, I guess, which is the key. Tim Allen could not have done Woody's voice, for example, and Tom Hanks could not have done Buzz's voice. Which takes us to Buzz, who I've got here as being brave, confident, strong, improviser, inspiring leader, So just a very different type of leadership, and helps others. We mentioned the Rex Raw, working out, very mission focused.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a bit too mission focused and has identity shattered when he finds out he's not a toy. The reality check makes him depressed. Which again, though, as I said, it can be something that's quite relatable when you think that you're meant to be something in life, and then you find out that it's not going to go that way for you.
That's actually quite funny when you think about it, though, because like Woody, like, is very flawed. I say what you want about him, but he's very resilient in the sense of, like, you know, we talked about the claw machine, and he like finds the door, and he does that quite a lot, and it's like, I guess it's Buzz's first big setback, but how he is not able to bring himself back from that. Woody has to put in so much effort. Like, he's sloshed on Darjeeling. He's like crestfallen, you know, after seeing the ad. Like, he tried to jump, he broke his arm, all that sort of stuff. Like, he wasn't the one who came up with the ideas of like how to actually get the, you know, the rocket back on launching or whatever. Like, all of that was Woody. So it's quite funny that, like, I think that says a lot about someone as well. It's not just being mission focused, but also what you do when things don't go to plan, and like how you show up.
Yeah, I think the biggest similarity between the two of them is how they're too attached to an identity. That Woody was too attached to identity as Andy's toy, and when he lost that, he became quite broken. He reacted by being mean.
Yeah,
and Buzz was too attached to his identity as a space ranger, and when he lost that, he became really depressed and unmotivated. But this is why they're such a great team. They've got very
like complementary
complementary skills. So they took the tin toy from the show, and he was going to be the Buzz character, but they realized that wouldn't work because the whole point is that the Buzz character needs to be the new shiny toy. So they upgraded him to a high-tech toy. Initially, he was called Lunar Larry, which I think is a decent one. Then this one's less so. Then Tepus from Morph was his name. And then Buzz, named after Buzz Aldrin. Billy Crystal was the big person that was offered it. So from Harry Met Sally and many other great movies. And a lot of people turned it down because, a bit like with the Barbie thing, they didn't know if this movie was going to work. And, there's a graveyard of bad cartoon animated projects that famous people have given their voice to that are really embarrassing now. And so Billy Crystal obviously was skeptical. Very much regrets it now, but then he's the voice of Mike in Monsters Inc.
Wazowski.
Exactly, yeah. And he's very good at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently Billy Crystal was the big one. There was a bunch of other people that were considered. It's not as clear that they were actually offered it and turned it down, whereas Billy Crystal is very much an official story. But then they got Tim Allen, who I feel like this is probably the thing he's most famous for now, because he was on Home Improvement, which was huge at the time. Did you ever watch that?
Yes.
I didn't. I don't even what was it actually about? It was just a sitcom.
You know what? It was a sitcom. I couldn't really tell you much about what it was about. It was literally there was two neighbors living next to each other, and the whole thing is they would talk over the fence, but you'd only see like the top half of their head. And I couldn't tell you what they ever actually talked about. It was like it seemed strange. I don't think I was the target demographic, but he's most famous to me as a child, at least, from the Santa Claus.
Oh, yes, of course.
He's a very big guy in Christmas movies later on, in Christmas with the Cranks. Yeah. But the Santa Claus was like it was our favourite like Christmas movie. So yeah, we watched that one every year.
Nice. Yeah, but he has a very... I'm just trying to compare Tim Allen and Tom Hanks here. And I feel as though Tom Hanks is doing more with the voice. Like, he's displaying more emotions. But Tim Allen's very particular... ruckusness, the gravitas of his voice is more important than the sound of Tom Hanks' voice. You get what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So, but yeah, they're both great, and it's actually really cute seeing them because they're in a lot of the behind the scenes, and it seems like the two of them developed a friendly rivalry where they each argue that their toy was the better one.
Oh, really?
And like, yeah, Tim Allen's like, well, we all knew that the Buzz was the better toy. And it's about this scrawny cowboy getting in his way, and Tom Hanks will be like, yeah, I mean, my poor guy Woody, he's there, he's having his place taken, he's just got to stand up for himself. And one thing is, you sometimes hear about people who do these recordings and they just come in for a couple of days, get paid. Especially stuff like Transformers movies, apparently. These people come in, they don't know anything about it. They just read the lines, they don't know what they mean. They're in and out, they're out, they get their couple of $100,000. But apparently, I don't think this was the most... I'm sure they refined their process later on with other movies. But it seems like they had the two of them in all the time, re-recording stuff, and they had them do initial drafts, and then when they rewrote the script, they had to redo everything.
Yeah.
And they talk about at the end they had to come in to redo some stuff. So they were very much involved for years with the actual making of the movie. So it wasn't they were part of the fabric of the movie. They weren't just there for. I mean, they weren't just there for the money and not involved, which is very nice to hear that. So, voice recasting. What have you gone for? I feel like this was a perfect level of, it wasn't easy, but then once I got into it, I feel like I came up with some good ones. So, who did you go for?
I actually went for Steve Carell for Woody.
That didn't even come up with me, but
I've gone more down like a comedy path. So I thought if we were going for a slightly different vibe for Buzz, someone like Liam Neeson could be quite good.
Okay.
And if we weren't going down the comedy route for Buzz, I thought someone like Robert Downey Jr., who's just like a bit more serious and like, you know, could be like a bit more, I don't know, grumpy's not the right word, but like has an air of like, I'm really important and whatever it might be. I'm just thinking of Iron Man. But yeah, I think I'm gonna put Liam Neeson as my top choice there, and I think
Steve Carell.
That could be, and Steve Carell. And then I don't know if you wanted to do a couple of others.
Yeah, I've actually done them all in the end.
Have you? But I thought Andy Samberg as Rex.
So Andy Samberg came across and I couldn't find the right one, but I think Rex is a good
because
one.
I think in Brooklyn Nine-Nine he does a lot of like, you know, he can be
Silly,
quite theatrical. Yeah, he can be silly. He can do a occasional sort of more high pitched or whiny sort of thing.
Definitely.
So I just think he embraces the sort of campy side at times as well, which Rex very much is. And then I had Josh Gad, but I was kind of torn because he's the voice of Olaf in Frozen, isn't he? Yeah, I was thinking he has to be in there. And I think first I was trying to put him as
I would have put him as Rex.
Yeah, I think I tried to have him as Ham or Mr. Potato Head, and then I was like, actually, both of them have quite deep, like, serious voices, and I feel like his is a bit more silly. So I wanted to put him in there, but that didn't feel like a very natural place for him. Maybe Slinky if we weren't going for like a gravelly smoker voice.
So I've gone for Will Arnett for Slinky because I think that reproduces very much the gravelly thing.
Yes, if you're keeping it true to the original.
Did you do Mr. Potato Head or Ham or Bo?
No.
So I've got Adam Brody for Rex. I think he could do the
that
bit
could
like
work.
silly, a bit wimpy, vulnerable.
Yeah.
Then Will Arnett for Slinky. This one I'm gonna put my hands up. I came up with a lot of these myself. I think a lot of these myself, especially the main two. But then I did see what ChatGPT was gonna come up with, and it gave me Mr. Potato Head, and I think it's undeniable. Danny DeVito. Mr. Potato Head, I think is kind of brilliant. Then I put Nick Offerman as Ham.
That's what I was missing. I wanted someone who was a bit more deadpan, but still funny.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't quite think of someone like that. So that's a great one.
And then this one, she's a wet blank, but I put Rachel McAdams as Bo. It's not, I don't think it's a particularly hard one to do. You just got to put someone who's got a bit of a feminine voice, whatever. But the main event. So for Woody, I came up with a lot. Actually, I came up with a lot. So these are not these are the finalists, but not my picks. Evan Peters for Woody, Andrew Garfield, Ryan Gosling. I think ChatGPT said I think he's probably a bit too cool. He's not vulnerable enough. Adam Scott and Jason Sudeikis, ChatGPT recommended, but I'm not going with any of them. My choice was that I came up by myself. Is Bill Hader.
Oh, yeah.
Because, he can do anything with his voice. Yeah. But I just think he's got, he could do... that's the thing with Woody, what we were saying. You need someone that has a lot of versatility in their voice. So I can see him being the leader. I can see him being vulnerable. I can see him being emotional. And I just love Bill Hader. So I'd love to hear it. Then for Buzz, so... I'm really torn here. So finalists, Callum Turner, Michael B. Jordan, John Hamm. But my final two are Chris Hemsworth and Glenn Powell.
It's just so annoying.
But don't you think they're right for it? They're the archetype of the strong confidence. Okay, I'll put Chris Hemsworth. He was actually the one I wrote down, so I'm going Chris Hemsworth. It would be a bit different, but I think he does. I just obviously think of him in Thor. He's basically playing a version of it.
Actually, I think Chris Hemsworth is a very good shout. Yes.
Okay, so I'm recasting Buzz as Chris Hemsworth, Woody as Bill Hader, and you're doing Steve Carell as Woody and Liam Neeson as Buzz.
Yes.
So I did ask ChatGPT what it would say. So it actually chose Bill Hader for Woody, Glenn Powell for Buzz. So it has an idea what it's doing. It put Amy Adams as Bo, which I think is pretty decent. Mr. Potato Head, Danny DeVito. They put Ben Schwartz as Rex. The guy who voices Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
The one from, he's in Parks and
Yes,
Rec.
the tall hair guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's a good at voice actor for like Sonic and stuff.
Is.
They put Jason Bateman as Ham.
Oh, that's quite a good choice, actually. Yeah.
I keep saying it.
Yeah.
And then the final one, which I thought I disagree, but I think is interesting, was Matthew McConaughey as Slinky.
Oh, you know what? That's actually a really great shout.
Yeah. Listen, it's not the worst at this.
Oh, just wish my brain would get there.
I was quite happy that a lot of the ones I came up with, it then came up with. I was like, I got it. All right, we're moving on to the script here. So I've alluded to this a couple of times, that the fact the story was very different originally. So the original story was the tin toy, getting left at a highway rest stop and then befriending an old ventriloquist dummy, and together they find a sort of heaven at a preschool where they'll never get outgrown.
Okay.
So does that sound at all familiar? Any bits of that?
Well, the preschool thing.
Also, being left at a rest stop is what happens to Lotso in the third one.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny that at least two of the three important elements here from the original story were reused, basically recycled into Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
Because in the end, they went in a very different direction. So it grew into the story we knew today. It does seem as though the whole rewrite thing, the story was pretty similar. It's just that the characters were very different. Well, Woody specifically was different. The whole tone apparently, and this was where Disney was involved. Yeah, so this is the time to say it. Basically, Disney wanted to be very involved because they said, listen, you guys are cute making your 2-minute animated shorts and your TV commercials, but we're Disney. We make all these amazing movies. Although, ironically, the reason why they were working with Pixar is because they were really struggling to come up with new ideas.
Yeah.
So Disney, apparently, their head of the studio was giving notes all the time. He was seeing the scripts. They were involved. They were saying, do this and do that. One thing, for example, they wanted it to be a musical. They wanted full-on musical numbers where the toys would sing. And Pixar said, no, we're not. I don't think they ever entertained that idea. They said, no, we'll bring in Randy Newman. We'll do musical bits, but we're not going to have the toys singing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is they think they wanted it to be, the word was edgy. So that's where I think, even though there is still some edgy humor in it, the grown-ups thing, I think it almost sounded like they wanted it to be something more like South Park, where the toys were like fully rude, and they really wanted to push the adult humor. And the result is what's referred to as the Black Friday incident, where about 2 years in, they showed part of the movie to Disney, and everyone was like, this is a fucking disaster. And they considered pulling the plug altogether. And the biggest thing was the fact that Woody was horrible, and no one, Tom Hanks talks about it. He says, yeah, I hated the character even though I voiced him and stuff. So, but what they decided to do is they basically said, we hired Pixar for a reason. We need to let them do it. And they kind of went back to the drawing board and redid it, started it from scratch. But Pixar was left to do it by themselves, because it seems like it was a case of too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And it's not just John Lasseter. It does seem like it's a real collaborative effort with all the people involved at Pixar. But the people at Pixar are very different from the people at Disney, and they had their own vision and stuff. And once they were allowed to do it and really put the heart in Toy Story, that's how we got the movie that we love.
Good. It is a good blend, though, of like the adult sort of humor. Like, you know, even now when we watch Friends and stuff like that, and there are certain jokes that are for adults, obviously, but like we all watched it as children, and we still laughed. I don't know what I thought I was laughing at half the time. Because some of it is definitely not stuff that I would have gotten until I was an adult. But I feel like there's a lot. That's kind of why you're able to rewatch Toy Story as an adult so much and enjoy it, is because so much of the humor is somehow appropriate enough that it will either go over a kid's head or that they can laugh and enjoy it for some other reason. Absolutely. But actually a lot of adult jokes in there.
Absolutely. So some of the best lines that we worked on together is the first one, nothing mind-blowing, but when the soldiers go down for the party, and I think Mr. Potato or someone says something dickish, probably Mr. Potato Head, Woody reassures them and says, they're not lying down on the job. He's like, these guys are professional. They're the best in the business. They're not lying down on the job. And then it cuts to, I think it's right after the mum has swept them aside, and they're all literally lying down on the job. Yeah. So I thought, again, no kid would ever find that funny, but I found it. Then I've got, and there's seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere, which I believe is one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Then what I mentioned it earlier, another adult one is like, what's with him? Laser envy.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a reference to penis envy. Then when he's having the confrontation with Buzz, and Buzz says, excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger. And Woody says, the word I'm searching for, I can't say because there's preschool toys present. Which again, adult joke.
Oh, I didn't remember that one.
Yeah.
That is very funny.
Yeah, it's different, but it reminds me a little bit of in Lion King when Pumbaa is about to say farts and Timon goes, Pumbaa, Pumbaa, there's kids watching.
Yeah.
Then when he's having the confrontation with Buzz, you are a toy. And then Buzz says, you are a sad, strange little man and you have my pity.
Yeah.
Because again, there he doesn't get angry. He's just like, poor guy.
Yeah.
You've just got something wrong with you. You got to deal with your own issues. And then when they're in Sid's room and he's doing the surgery on the toys, Hannah's toy, I think he says something like, oh, doctor's in the house. And Buzz says, I don't, like deadpan serious, I don't believe that man's ever been to medical school.
Yeah.
And then I think very shortly after, when they see the other toys and he starts using the laser, Woody goes, if anyone attacks us, we can blink them to death. And then also when they have their heart-to-heart, you are a cool toy. As a matter of fact, you're too cool. Which is just one of the more emotional lines. Most of these, I always find when I do my favorite lines and then you group them, it kind of actually speaks to the entertainment and the fact that most of these are just funny lines.
Yeah.
Like when we did the Two Towers with Frosty, which is coming out in a few months, I found that, a third of them were about inspiration and stuff, and a third of them were about war, and a third of them were about, compassion and humanity and all that sort of thing. But yeah, here it's roughly 80% just funny lines.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific line I'm thinking of, but definitely when the drunk on Darjeeling, whatever it is, there's definitely something there, but he's just slurring. So yeah, I think he's going down like a self-pity route, and it's more like the way in which he's speaking that is funny.
Absolutely. So then I've got So Play Nice, the creepy one.
Yeah.
And then again, I've alluded to it, when they realized that Buzz was alive. Slinky, what have we done? Great, Rex, great, now I have guilt.
Yeah.
And then the emotional crescendo, this isn't flying, this is falling with style to infinity and beyond. And then so I always do the themes after the dialogue because it usually ties in. So we talk about purpose, whether your purpose is to be a space ranger, but your purpose is to be the favorite toy, to take care of Andy. Just a lot of commentary on that, about how it's important, but also, you've got to find your own identity. Then replacement, obviously, that it can be, if you're working in a job, if you get replaced in a relationship. But sometimes I'm sure a lot of older, actually, this is an interesting one I hadn't thought about just now. But older kids must have felt that way when a new kid comes along. And, you obviously get a lot less attention and stuff. I can't say that's ever something that I related to, even though we're both the older children in the family. But I'm sure that's something that is a universal theme.
Yeah.
And then, Shattered Dreams, talked about with Buzz. I think there's a lot that you can link back to the workplace about not being too emotional, not basing too much of your identity on your work, and stuff like that. Work, family balance, and then I think just the family idea of family, whether it's the family with Andy and his mom and all the toys, or the family within the toys, community, teamwork. You mentioned was a really good one, and I think the fact that they live as a little society is very interesting, and that is actually one of the best things about all the sequels, how they kind of develop different aspects of the toy society.
Yeah, and it's like everybody has a different role to play. Just because yours looks different doesn't mean that you're less important. It's part of the workplace is like you have different people for different things.
Exactly. Okay, moving on to the production. So obviously the big thing here is about the computer animation. So here's the way they did it. So they started off like you would with a cartoon. They would just sketch the characters or whatever. Yeah. But then for a lot of them, they molded them out of clay, which is something that's been, like, they did this with Lord of the Rings and stuff as well. It's just a good way to visualize stuff in 3D. And then they would recreate them digitally, often using the molds. There's videos, which I'll put in the B-roll, of them actually just scanning the mold of Buzz Lightyear to get like the right consistency of his face and everything. Mm-hmm. So that way you're kind of digitizing these models. And then I mentioned before, you would then animate these digital marionettes basically with all of these different things. So in the case of Woody, he had 700 different animation controls in his body. So, anything from his elbow because you've got this static thing, and you say, okay, how are we gonna animate it? And it's like, okay, well, we need to be able to make his fingers move, and that's when you decide. Is like, okay, do we just make it do that? Do we need to make it bend like this, and then the arms and everything, and then the face to get all of the amazing expressions? That's when they needed the 212 in Woody's face, 58 in his mouth. I don't think they literally had an animator move it for every single frame. I'm sure they at some point they realized that they found a way to program the software that if you needed Woody to do this, it's like, okay, let's make all of the things move that would. But I'm sure it was still absolutely agonizingly, especially back then. The software obviously got better with every movie, and it not just looking better, but I'm sure it was easier to use. But the amount of effort that went into it is insane.
Yeah, completely. Like what you said about the leaves
on
Lundy Street is crazy to think about. Not to be underappreciated.
Yeah, and as I said, the big thing when you watch the documentaries is about the fact they were just waiting for the computers, because it's I've forgotten what it was called. There's a law in computer programming that basically it's roughly every 2 years the computer processing power doubles, and obviously it's going up exponentially.
Yeah.
So I think James Cameron has talked about this in some of his movies. That I think one of the I think it was one of the Avatar sequels. Well, I think he said one of the reasons why he waited so long is because he was literally waiting for technology to catch up with the things that he had imagined and he wanted to do. And so it seems like there was a lot of that with this. I also, just some little things I noticed, the colors are super vivid in this compared to anything else. I think they're almost a bit too vivid, but it gives it a very particular style. And we talked about this with the watching them in sequence. When we watched the first one first, I think I said to you, I was like, it's amazing how good it looks for given how old it is. But then you watch the second, which is a huge jump up, and the third, I think if anything, the fourth almost looks too good. Like they've almost become too fluid. But I do think having gone 1, 2, 3, 4 back to 1, I did think, it actually does look quite crude.
Really?
It still looks great, especially the humans. I think the humans and the dog are the worst thing, and they obviously put a lot more effort into the toys. I think the toys look pretty great.
Yeah.
But even them, you can just... It reminds me a lot of like Grand Theft Auto type animation video games where... Because I mean, it pretty much is the same technology. So... And also we watched it on a giant screen, or I was like really... I think that's it. If you just watch it casually and you haven't watched it in ages, you don't think about it. But when you're drawing a direct comparison between 1 and 4, it is quite noticeable how different it is.
Interesting, yeah. Oh, it's good. No, I think it's definitely not something I agree with. But it's because I just don't think I noticed it. I think if you put them side by side, I would probably agree. But it's not going from 4 back to 1 again in the space of whatever it was, a few days. It's not something
really?
that was like
that's good.
Yeah.
And then did you do your favorite shots? Or...
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to take you do yours first, and then I'll add any.
Okay. So I had, and when you say shots, I guess it depends how long. If it's
it can be long, but it has to be the same shot.
Yeah, because I had the when Buzz is trying to show that he can fly.
Yes.
There were quite a few parts to that, but I think that's more of a scene. Yeah. So I guess I would pick when he's like on the light bit. And then there's the soldiers as well when they're coming down. I think with a parachute, there's a bit they come down the stairs.
It's a very cool shot because it starts from behind them and it sees the two of them jump.
Yeah.
And it's one continuous shot and their parachutes open. Yeah, that's my first favorite one.
Yeah. And then let me actually see. I have a couple that I wrote down, but I find it hard to distinguish between shots and scenes. So. Those were the two main ones. Then there's the Andy's room transformation, which is not really a shot,
but it's scene.
Quite cool. And then the whole bit where Buzz actually gets knocked out of the window, which again is more of a scene than a shot, but it's the sequence of events.
Yeah, all the things knocking it together.
And Woody's face during the rocket towards the van. Those were all of mine.
So so I've got the parachuting one, the Raiders of the Lost Ark ball chasing him.
Yeah.
Buzz tapping his seatbelt. I just thought that's very funny. Then sad Buzz in front of the commercial might be my more emotional one. And then Buzz we're flying because it just seemed Buzz in complete control flying and Woody going from being horrified to oh my god we're flying to infinity and beyond. That's
actually a really good one. Yeah.
So obviously we talked about the special effects, but the other really important part of the production is the music.
Yeah.
So Randy Newman wrote, performed, pretty much did everything for these. And so I mean, honestly, I don't even think I knew the names of them other than You've Got a Friend in Me up until this prep. So I've got the lyrics of all of them because they're actually quite interesting and about how different their approach is. So You've Got a Friend in Me, which is the anthem, is very universal. This could actually be about anything. You know, it could be about your partner, it could be about your friend, it could be about your brother or whatever, you know, because it's got lines like, when the roads look rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, just remember that your old pal said, boy, you've got a friend in me, you got a friend in me. If you've got troubles, I've got them too. Blah, blah, blah. Some folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too, maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. It's me and you, boy. So there's nothing there explicitly about toys.
Yeah.
But yeah, great song, universally applied. However, in Stranger Things, I was on top of the world, living high. I was right in my pocket. I was living my life. Okay, that's still quite general. Things were just the way they should be when from out of the sky like a bong comes some little punk in a rocket.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, this, now all of a sudden some strange things are happening to me, ain't no doubt about it. So I think Strange Things is the most on the nose one, which is very much about exactly what's happening to Woody. I had power, I was respected, but not anymore. I've lost the love of the one who I adore. Let me tell you something, that strange things are happening. Some strange things are happening to me. You got someone you think you know well. He turns out a stranger. The minute you turn your back, you're in it all by yourself. It's quite dark as well. But I think just the Strange Things, the musical, the lyric, it just sounds so good.
Yeah.
So I think that's the more musically interesting one. And then the more emotional of the three is so I didn't even know what this one was called, is so No Sailing No More. So this one is more poetic. So it's using the metaphor. Out among the stars I sail, way beyond the moon. In my silver ship I sail, a dream that ended too soon. Now I know exactly who I am, and that's why I am here, for I will go sailing no more. So the sailboat being a spaceman. All the things I thought I'd be, all the brave things I'd done, vanished like a snowflake with the rising of the sun. Never more to sail my ship where no man has gone before, and I will go sailing no more. So that's like him being really sad. But then when he thinks, but no, it can't be true. I could fly if I wanted to, like a bird in the sky. If I believe I could fly, why I'd fly. Tries, jumps, falls. Clearly, I will go sailing no more. And so yeah, it's about you think you can do things and actually you can't. So yeah, I think that's the more emotional of the three. But yeah, three very distinct roles. Stranger Things, on the nose, serving. I think so Disney wanted to have like musical numbers like in Lion King or Aladdin, but Pixar instead said that they should be emotional narrations over key sequences, which I think was a great shout.
Yeah.
So Strange Things, on the nose, I Will Go Sailing, more abstract, poetic, emotional, and You've Got a Friend with Me, iconic anthem, much more general in the lyrics, and yeah, you can apply to anything. Now that we've dissected it, let's put it all back together. Why do you think this is one of the most important movies, both for us and for the world in general?
Personally, I think we, similar-ish kind of age to Andy when it came out, and throughout, obviously we're just talking about the first one predominantly here, but throughout the journey of the Toy Story movies, and partially why I found the third one so emotional, is because of that transition of childhood to adulthood, and then he's like passing the toys on to the next kid or whatever. So I feel like there's that element of like we went on a similar journey age-wise. But then all the things we've talked about, I think, on the face of it, it's very entertaining. It's very funny. It has a bit of emotion in there. But honestly, for me, it's like the timelessness of it all.
Yes.
And as we've talked about a lot today, how relevant it is to other aspects of life, even though it just seems like on the face of it, it's just about a bunch of toys. It's like actually so much more than that. And just still to this day, so funny and entertaining as well. So it's not just like a senseless piece of entertainment that has lots of layers.
Style and substance.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I'm basically going to reiterate it, but I think I mentioned before about how I saw it almost like a new modern fairy tales, and I think it introduced us to Pixar's world view, and everyone's focused on the technological breakthrough of the computer animation, but I think beyond that, what they did was create a whole new form of storytelling, which is basically what you said, but I've written it down here as modern fairy tales for a digitally aware audience with simple, emotionally grounded stories about huge human fears and ideas.
Yeah.
But Pixar wraps these emotional truths inside concepts that are completely absurd on paper. So toys that come alive, monsters that harvest screams, rats becoming chefs.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the digital aspect is so important, because these ideas are so abstract that you need, I don't think graphic design before, like the Disney thing, you could do it justice of actually bringing the idea to light, because it would literally look cartoonish.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the digital aspect allows them to bring these big ideas to life, and as a result express all of the emotional lessons and analysis, commentary about life that they're able to do. And it seems like it's the offshoot cousin or grandchild or whatever of the Disney movies that we love. Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, but Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all of that. But it's very much like Pixar is very much its own thing. I mean, I think it does a lot more. It's kind of like all of those movies on steroids.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I feel like if we were like, we'll do something like The Lion King one day and it'll be amazing. But I think it's much more grounded and simple, and it's about family and making mistakes and finding yourself. That's what The Lion King is about. But yeah, this is kind of more of a more ambitious on every level version of Disney movies. So it's more ideas, more ideas on the inside, more ideas on the outside, more complicated execution. Obviously the music is great in Disney movies, and it's great here. But even that, the music is very different. That the music's a lot more emotional in Disney movies, whereas here it's just more fun, I guess would be the word.
Yeah, and I think with Disney, it's always a really clear, it's a very simple story and very clear, this is the hero, this is the villain. Whereas, like, part of what makes this film so interesting is the complexity of the characters and the character arc as well. Like, I feel like most characters in pure Disney movies just kind of stay as they are.
Very like one-dimensional.
There's no journey that you go on with them. They just are who normally you expect them to be, which kind of makes this one more
is a very old school way of doing it. Star Wars, like Lord of the Rings, obviously very old, but I always use those as examples. Like, it's good and it's evil.
Yeah.
Whereas, because you could argue that Woody is the villain in this movie, or part of it, but obviously then is not. Yeah, I guess Disney. I think I'd say Disney movies are more aimed at children than Pixar movies are, but they're both so good at entertaining children while being beloved by adults, especially those that grew up with it. So just to finish it off, the way I do it with my rankings is I don't put Toy Story 1, 2, 3 in my 100. I have Toy Story as an entity in my top 100, and then I choose my favorite of it. So I have the Toy Story franchise at number 18 in my list. So top 20.
Okay.
But this one is not my favorite. Toy Story 3, I decided from our rewatch, is my favorite.
Yeah.
So if you use the same methodology, where would you put Toy Story as an entity with you? Like, and you don't have to say an exact one. You can say top 5, top 10, top 20, top 50. And also, which one would you say, as of right now, is your favorite?
Honestly, if I think about the quality of each of the Toy Story movies, it really should be quite high on my list, because there's not many others that I can say that about. So yeah, I think I probably would say maybe like top 10.
Top 10? Yeah. And which one's your favorite?
I find this really hard. I find it hard because the first one is the one I have more attachment to, because I know I've watched it the most and it's the one that I watched like first, I guess. Yeah. I don't know, but the second and third, I mean, if you're asking my rating, the first, second, and third, I've all rated 5-star on Letterboxd. So in a way, you could say they're all on the same level. But my favorite, I think it's the second one.
Really?
Yeah, as in, like, I think the story. I think the story is more fun in the second one.
I think they do more with every movie because they're expanding the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I originally had the first one on my Letterboxd list. Then we watched it, 5-star. Then we watched the second one, which was the one I had on DVD. I might have actually watched the second one more than the first one as a kid.
Oh, really?
And I thought, it's exactly like you say, more happens, it's more fun. The whole collective thing is super interesting.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think it's the second. And then we watched the third.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. So the third one is definitely my favorite. I think similar to what you said about the second, because I think there's some really interesting storylines in the third one about fascism. Which is obviously, I'm as a fan of history, that really resonated with me. And then I love nothing more than to cry in a movie. So the third one is just the ultimate one. So I have third as my favorite.
Yeah.
I just 1 and 2 are just so.
They're so.
I think as of right now, sitting in this seat now, I would put 1 as my second.
Yeah.
because we've been talking about it so much. But I feel like we'll probably do Toy Story 2 one day. And at that point, I'll be like, no, this is my second favorite. But let's call 1 and 2 basically even. And then the fourth one, I have fourth.
Yeah, same.
So that does it. And I realized the other thing, which we haven't even mentioned too, is the fifth one coming out. So do you know the basic premise?
No.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yes.
So, because I actually thought this when I was watching the first one of, oh, do kids even play these days, or they just play with iPads? And then I thought, oh yeah, that's what they're doing in the fifth one. It's about, so Woody's comes back, they go back to get Woody back because he's in the wild.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that basically the iPads are taking all the attention away from children.
Oh.
Wow,
it's very real.
I try not to watch trailers. I think I must have seen it by accident or whatever, so that's all I know. But I'm intrigued. I have high hopes. I mean, it's so risky to keep making these, but Pixar needs hits these days. But they gotta. I mean, if it's anything less than a 4.5, because we agreed the fourth one is our least favorite, but I still gave it a 4.5. I still think it's an amazing, excellent movie. It's just definitely a step below the others. But yeah, if this is anything less than a 4.5, even on first viewing, it's going to be a disappointment.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's out in 3 weeks.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, we'll find out soon, but I really hope to like it.
So, Sonita, thank you very much for being on the podcast again.
It was my pleasure. Thanks
and
for
I'm
having me.
sure we'll be seeing you again soon. We've been talking about doing one of your favorite horror movies, The Ring, which would be a very different tone for today. And I'll probably be crying a lot more, but not in a good way.
Yeah, I'm ready for that.
And thanks you guys all for listening and watching. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or Amazon for these full episodes on the last Thursday of every month. And you can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for near daily movie content.